Chapter 1540. After the dragon phoenix true body repelled the two patriarchs of the barbarian race, it suddenly exerted strength and flapped its gigantic wings. It soared into the air and shook its head, tearing with its claws. The expressions of the two ancestor gods changed starkly. Initially, they were in a stalemate with the dragon phoenix true body, with their ancestor god Dermic treasures, and neither of them was willing to let go first. Now that the dragon phoenix true body suddenly exerted strength, the two ancestor gods could not control their bodies, and were pulled far away by the dragon phoenix true body, flinging them into the air. The two ancestor gods gripped their Dermic treasures tightly, and were dizzy from the dragon phoenix true body's flinging. If they did not let go, the bones of the two ancestor gods would fall apart. The two ancestor gods could only let go and throw away their Dermic treasures for the time being. The dragon phoenix true body snatched the two Dermic treasures and threw them casually on the ground. Staring in the direction of the two ancestor gods, it suddenly opened its mouth. Swoosh! An incomparably scorching scarlet flame spewed out of the dragon phoenix true body's mouth. It contained an extremely terrifying power, and seemed like it could burn everything in the world to ashes. Dragon phoenix flames. That was the innate divine power of the taboo dragon phoenix. Up till now, there were no living beings in Tianhuang mainland with flames that could fight against the dragon phoenix flames. Wherever the dragon phoenix flames passed by, fine cracks were burned into the void. The flames transformed into two streaks of red light, and arrived before the two ancestor gods in the blink of an eye. The middle-aged ancestor god and the old woman had grim expressions, and did not dare to be careless. The storage rings on their fingers shone. A huge golden shield appeared in each of their hands. Boom! Boom! It was accompanied by two deafening sounds. The middle-aged ancestor god and the old woman placed the two golden shields in front of them. Sand and gravel flew everywhere as the shields shone with a brilliant light, blocking the two incoming streaks of dragon phoenix flames. The dragon phoenix true body channeled its essence spirit to its limits. The might of the dragon phoenix flames increased exponentially and gradually devoured the golden light. They collided against the two golden shields and continued burning. However, the two golden shields were Dermic treasures as well. Although the might of the dragon phoenix flames was terrifying, it could not penetrate the defenses of the golden shields. The dragon phoenix true body's gaze was resolute, and it had no intention of stopping as it continued to erupt. The dragon phoenix flame enveloped the entire giant golden shield and burned it continuously. Many flames even bypassed the huge golden shield and landed on the walls of the savage hall. That huge rock melted into lava in the blink of an eye and slowly flowed down along the wall. Even the peak of the wildlands was shaking slightly. The two wildlands patriarchs had just stabilized themselves when they saw this scene. Suddenly, their expressions changed, and their pupils contracted slightly. Under the gazes of the two ancestral gods, the enormous golden shields in their hands actually began to gradually transform. Soon, they turned into a nearly translucent crimson color. The giant golden shield was actually burned through by the dragon phoenix flames. Yes, behind the golden shield, the two elder gods let out muffled groans. The giant golden shield was burned to such a state, and the two ancestral gods' palms were also burned. They couldn't hide any longer and soared into the sky. Boom! The flames of the dragon phoenix burned brightly and sent the giant golden shield flying. In the blink of an eye, they engulfed and devoured the two ancestor gods. If it were a human patriarch, he would not be able to escape death after being engulfed by the dragon phoenix flame. However, the figures of the two ancestral gods were still extremely clear amidst the blazing scarlet flames. They emanated powerful auras and emanated boundless radiance. With the divine blood as the guide extinguish, the middle-aged ancestral god bit the tip of his tongue gently and spat out a stream of golden divine blood. This stream of divine blood contained an extremely vast amount of energy that scattered within the dragon phoenix flames. The flames were extinguished instantly, causing thick smoke to rise. The two ancestral gods' reactions were already fast enough. However, they were still burned to a wretched state by the dragon phoenix flames. Many holes were burned in their clothes. Even his physical body had been burned. Of course, with the bloodlines of the ancestral gods and their powerful self-healing abilities, this bit of injury was nothing at all. The divine blood and the dragon phoenix flames collided, letting out sizzling sounds. Thick smoke billowed and a mist rose. Be it the dragon phoenix flames or the divine blood, both of them contained immense energy. The mist produced by the collision of the two types of energy was extremely powerful. Watch out! At that moment, the two patriarchs of the barbarian race warned. Immediately after, a biting cold killing intent enveloped them. The middle-aged ancestral god and the old woman's hearts nearly jumped to their throats. Not good. The two ancestral gods' expressions changed as they smelled the scent of death. The collision of the divine blood and the dragon phoenix flames produced a mist that greatly obstructed the vision and senses of the middle-aged ancestral god and the old woman. However, the dragon phoenix true form knew their exact location. The moment the mist rose, the dragon phoenix true form attacked. Flapping its wings, the dragon phoenix true form transformed into a red beam of light and arrived in front of the two ancestral gods in an instant. It extended 5 sharp claws and enveloped the middle-aged ancestral god. At the same time, the dragon phoenix true form opened its mouth and bit down viciously in the old woman's direction. Poof, poof, poof. The 5 claws of the dragon phoenix sealed off all the possible escape routes for the middle-aged ancestral god. That powerful body of his was torn into pieces in the blink of an eye. Golden divine blood splattered in all directions. Her organs were scattered all over the ground as blood energy surged into the skies. Snap! The dragon phoenix true form's mouth bit down on the old woman's body, splitting it into 2 from the middle. Bang! The phoenix tail descended and heavily whipped the 2 halves of the body. In an instant, the 2 halves of the body were whipped into a bloody mist. Not even their bones remained. Although the old woman was past her prime, she was an ancestral god after all. The dragon phoenix true form was afraid that it would not be able to bite the old woman to death, and followed up with another fatal blow, whipping the old woman into a blood mist. In the blink of an eye, 2 ancestral gods were dead. One was torn apart by the dragon phoenix true form. The other was in an even worse state. His body was gone, and he was whipped into a blood mist. The dragon phoenix true form panted slightly. Apart from the fact that the taboo was strong enough to kill the 2 ancestral gods. More importantly, the 2 ancestral gods did not use any divine powers. The 2 ancestral gods believed that the power of an ancestral god alone was enough to kill the dragon phoenix true form. However, the 2 of them did not expect that the dragon phoenix, as a taboo, was even stronger than them after conjuring a complete taboo body. The battle seemed to have ended. However, the 2 patriarchs of the barbarian race had strange expressions as they shook their heads slightly. The dragon phoenix true form frowned and suddenly thought of something as his heart skipped a beat. As expected of a taboo, even at the half-martial ancestor realm, he can fight against a patriarch in terms of strength. Right then, the middle-aged ancestral god's voice sounded with deep resentment. We were too careless. The old woman's voice sounded at the same time as she said slowly, we should have used our divine powers right away to kill him. In the void, the god blood of the middle-aged ancestral god and the old woman condensed without dissipating. Soon, right in front of everyone, the 2 balls of god blood condensed rapidly. In the blink of an eye, the 2 ancestral gods appeared once more. The 2 ancestral gods were unscathed, and there were no injuries on their bodies. Their essence spirits were reborn from a single drop of blood if they did not die. That was the means of a Mahayana patriarch. Chapter 1541. After reaching the Mahayana realm, and comprehending the ability to be reborn from a drop of blood, it was too difficult to kill them. Even if they were beaten to a pulp, as long as their essence spirit wasn't destroyed, and a drop of blood was left, they could use the ability to form a complete body with the help of that drop of blood. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 2 ancestral gods' divine senses moved, and the giant sword and dragon-headed staff on the ground turned into 2 streaks of light and returned to their hands. Fellow barbarians, there's no need to hold back. Use your abilities. The middle-aged Protoss said coldly. Heavenly God's descent. The middle-aged Protoss and the old woman shouted at the same time. A powerful force descended from the heavens and poured into the bodies of the two ancestral gods. Instantly, rays of golden light burst forth from the bodies of the two ancestral gods. This was the easiest ability for a Protoss to comprehend. This ability could allow a Protoss to borrow the power of an ancient heavenly god from an unknown place, to greatly increase their strength in a short period of time. Behind the two ancestral gods, two towering figures of heavenly gods appeared vaguely. They shone brightly and exuded a powerful aura. Barbaric force. The two barbarian patriarchs also unleashed their abilities at the same time. Once this barbarian divine ability was released, the two barbarian patriarchs' bodies swelled with energy, and they scurried around the barbarians' bodies like mice. In the blink of an eye, the two barbarian patriarchs' bodies swelled up by an entire size. This is bad. Long Song was secretly shocked. He slapped his storage bag, wanting to send a message to the Dragon's Bone Valley, to get the dragon patriarchs to come and save them. You want to leave after killing my Protoss young master? Just now, the two Protoss Almighties, who had vomited blood from the Dragon Phoenix True Form's dragon roar, noticed this scene. They moved and pounced toward Long Song and the others. The two Protoss Almighties hated the Dragon Phoenix True Form to the core. However, they couldn't defeat it, so they were filled with anger. Now, they finally found a chance to vent it. These two Protoss powerhouses were qualified to follow the Imperial God's son to visit the barbarian tribe. Naturally, they were also Protoss prodigies and had enough confidence to kill a group of dragons. Long Song's face darkened, revealing a murderous look as he said coldly, "Just the two of you dare to touch me?" He could not interfere in the battle between the Dragon Phoenix true body and the four ancestors. However, he was a five-clawed divine dragon. Among those of the same cultivation level, apart from the Dragon Phoenix true body, he had never feared anyone. When he had entered the Savage Palace, the two Protoss had scolded him. At that time, Long Song wanted to kill him. However, he had some misgivings in his heart, and did not dare to make a move against the two Protoss Almighties in the Savage Hall, under the noses of the five ancestral gods. But now, the Dragon Phoenix real body had gone on a killing spree, killing the Emperor Heaven Shensi, and an ancestor god. Long Song no longer had any scruples. At most, he would poke a hole in the sky and kill to his heart's content. Kill! Long Song's eyes shone brightly as he strode toward the two Protoss Almighties. Bam! 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 Long Song and the two Protoss fought in close combat. Their auras, flesh, and bones collided constantly, and dull sounds rang out. Long Song and the two Protoss bloodlines instantly raised to the tide-like blood realm. However, the moment they exchanged blows, the two Protoss Almighties were greatly shocked, and their eyes revealed their shock. Both of them were Protoss prodigies, but even with the two of them working together, they were still firmly suppressed by Long Song. After just a few rounds of head-on clashes, their arms were somewhat numb from the shock, and their teeth were sore. Their internal organs were also severely shaken. This was an absolute suppression in terms of strength. What shocked the two Protoss even more was that Long Song had yet to transform into his true form as a dragon. If they waited for Long Song to transform into his true form, his battle prowess would increase by at least 30%. Bloodline Avatar. The two Protoss didn't have time to think, and immediately summoned their bloodline avatars. Two ancient and mysterious pyramids appeared beneath the two of them. Billions of living beings prostrated around them, praying devoutly. An endless stream of power surged into the two Protoss Almighties' bodies. The two Protoss Almighties' auras were rapidly rising. Roar! All of a sudden, Long Song roared into the sky, releasing a loud and sonorous dragon roar. Immediately after, the vitality in Long Song's body rose and surged violently. In the blink of an eye, a ferocious and terrifying divine dragon with a massive body condensed behind him. This divine dragon was covered in green scales. Its gaze was sharp, and there were two horns on its head. It had 5 claws under its abdomen that shone with a cold glint. A massive pressure of dragons enveloped them. A 5-clawed divine dragon. The two Protoss Almighties couldn't help but widen their eyes and exclaim when they saw this divine dragon projection. The five-clawed divine dragon was the most noble and powerful bloodline of dragons. The two of them truly didn't expect that the follower behind the dragon phoenix true form was actually a five-clawed divine dragon. After the five-clawed divine dragon appeared, the billions of living beings prostrating around the pyramids raised their heads one after another, their faces filled with horror. Even the god on the pyramids couldn't protect them. Boom! The divine dragon's phantom soared into the sky and slammed into the two pyramids, causing a loud bang to erupt. Crack! Crack! Cracks appeared on the bodies of the two pyramids, and countless stones and gravel rolled down. The pyramids collapsed. The two Protoss Almighties shuddered as though they were struck by lightning. At that moment, another dragon roar sounded. The massive and terrifying five-clawed divine dragon charged toward them. It's just a bloodline phenomenon. Let me see how much power you have left. One of the Protoss Almighties roared and swung the long sword in his hand, wanting to shatter the divine dragon projection. In his opinion, although the divine dragon projection had shattered their pyramids, it had also lost most of its power and didn't have much left. Clang! His greatsword landed on the divine dragon's body and slid down the huge dragon scales, causing a series of sparks. He didn't manage to kill it. The Protoss's eyes widened, and he suddenly felt a chill all over his body. He was shocked. That's not right. This isn't a bloodline phenomenon. No matter how real a bloodline phenomenon was, it was only condensed from chi and blood. And when this god slashed down, it felt as if he had slashed down on real dragon scales, real flesh and blood. Oh no! The Protoss shouted. It's his true form. The five-clawed divine dragon's true form. Although he realized it, it was already too late. While Long Tsong activated his bloodline phenomenon, he also transformed into the five-clawed divine dragon's true form and charged forward, not giving the two Protoss Almighties a chance to struggle at all. Long Tsong opened his huge dragon mouth and bit down on one of the Protoss Almighties. Smack! Long Tsong's huge mouth closed. The Protoss Almighties disappeared, crushed into a bloody pulp by Long Tsong. Golden god blood flowed out slowly from the gaps between Long Tsong's teeth. Boom! Long Tsong swung his dragon tail. Before the other Protoss could react, a large shadow enveloped him and directly sucked his body into a bloody mist. Not even his bones were left. Protoss Almighties didn't have any means of rebirth from a drop of blood. The mighty figure's body and spirit were destroyed by the divine dragon's tail whip, and he died. Long Tsong unleashed his might and killed two Protoss Almighties. Chapter 1542. Although Long Tsong had killed the two Protoss mighty figures, it did not affect the current situation. Even if he transformed into his true form as a five-clawed divine dragon, he was still not qualified to interfere in the battle between Ancestor Realm cultivators. The two patriarchs and ancestor gods released their divine powers one after another. The dragon phoenix true body was still calm without any fear. It was indeed difficult for one to die after entering the Mahayana realm and comprehending blood rebirth. However, just because it was difficult to die did not mean that they could not be killed. Otherwise, many patriarchs of the human race would not have died over the years. Even for Mahayana patriarchs, their essence spirits were fatal. Once their essence spirits were destroyed and their souls dissipated, even if their bodies were intact, it meant that their consciousness would dissipate along with their deaths. There was another way. It was to destroy every single inch of the Mahayana patriarch's life force without leaving a single drop of bloodline. Even if their essence spirits were intact, they would not be able to reconstruct their bodies. The combat strength of Mahayana patriarchs that lost their bodies would be reduced, and it would be much easier to kill them. The dragon phoenix true body had a cold expression. The blood rebirth of a Mahayana patriarch could not scare him. He had a secret skill that could wipe out one's essence spirit directly. Reverse scale. When he saw the two patriarchs and ancestor gods charge forward, the glabella of the dragon phoenix true body shone, and his massive spirit consciousness condensed and compressed, spreading out a shuddering spirit consciousness fluctuation. A palm-sized scarlet scale floated out from the glabella of the dragon's true body. It was crescent-shaped and looked ordinary. However, the entire world seemed to tremble when the dragon scale appeared. Space seemed to have frozen. The reverse scale had descended. The dragon phoenix true body believed that even if the 4 patriarchs of the primordial races were not killed by the reverse scale, their essence spirits would be severely injured. At that time, he would have the absolute advantage and crush them. The expressions of the 2 patriarchs changed. However, there was no fear on the faces of the 2 ancestral barbarians. Instead, there was disbelief. How is that possible? The 2 patriarchs were shocked. The young master of the barbarian race widened his eyes in disbelief as well. After the reverse scale appeared, to the surprise of the dragon phoenix true body, although the 4 patriarchs of the primordial races paused, they did not conjure essence spirit secret skills to fight against it. The 2 ancestor gods frowned slightly with bewildered expressions. The heart of the dragon phoenix true body shook, and its eyes narrowed slightly. Under his gaze, the reverse scale, which had just formed, quickly dissipated and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Haha! The middle-aged ancestor god heaved a sigh of relief and laughed out loud. Longemo, you're truly foolish. You're just asking to be humiliated by releasing an essence spirit secret skill in the territory of the berserkers. Every single one of the primordial 9 races specialized in different powers and territories. The weaknesses of every primordial race were different. For example, the witch race had the weakest physique and bloodline among the primordial 9 races, and was not much different from ordinary humans. However, in terms of cultivation and comprehension of the primordial spirit, the magi were the strongest. On the other hand, the barbarian race was the exact opposite. The barbarians' physical bodies were extremely strong. In terms of physical training, they even surpassed the dragons and Protoss. However, the berserkers were the weakest among the primordial 9 races, in terms of cultivation of their essence spirits. In the Primordial War and the Antiquity War, there were almost no experts of the same level who could injure or severely injure the physical body of the brute race. However, there were still many brute race members who died in the 2 great battles. Most of the brute race members' bodies were intact, and they died to essence spirit secret skills. Therefore, essence spirit secret skills could not be condensed in the territory of the berserkers with the divine powers of the ancient berserker emperor. In the territory of the berserkers, they could use dermic arts, divine powers, or their physical bodies and bloodlines. However, they could not release essence spirit secret skills. Actually, the fact that the dragon phoenix true body could condense a reverse scale had already given the 2 patriarchs of the berserker race a shock. In the territory of the berserker race, with the divine powers of the ancient berserker emperor, it was impossible to even condense essence spirit secret skills, let alone release them. Just now the reverse scale was truly condensed. However, it could not defend against the divine powers left behind by the ancient berserker emperor and dissipated rapidly. Long Huangjun's body and mind moved. Soon he realized this. This unforeseen event was somewhat out of his control. Kill! The middle-aged ancestor god hollered, and the phantom of a heavenly god swayed. His body shone brightly as he swung his gigantic sword and charged forward once more. The old woman swayed as well, and made use of the divine powers of a heavenly god's descent to arrive suddenly. She swung her dragon-headed walking stick and smashed it down. The 2 patriarchs of the berserker race charged forward as well. The dragon phoenix true body could sense that the berserker race was still wary and restrained themselves. They did not summon their dermic treasures the entire time. Even so, the power released by the divine powers of the 4 patriarchs was incomparably terrifying, and was enough to kill him. Without time to think, the dragon's true body channeled his essence spirit. In his consciousness, a spirit turtle appeared on the surface of the sea and roared into the skies. Condense! The dragon's true body hollered softly. A divine light burst forth from his glabella and lingered in midair without dissipating. Buzz! A divine power that shook heaven and earth descended. A gigantic stone shield appeared in front of the dragon's true body. It was crude and ancient with curved patterns etched on it in a mysterious manner. This stone shield was like an ancient tortoise shell. The grooves on the tortoise shell were already shining brightly, emitting mysterious brilliance. It was an innate divine power from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, Spirit Turtle Shield. This was also the strongest defensive method of the Dragon Phoenix true body. Almost the moment the spirit turtle shield was formed, the attacks of the four patriarchs descended. Clang! Clang! The gigantic sword and dragon-headed walking stick of the two ancestor gods smashed onto the spirit turtle shield, almost simultaneously. Bang! Bang! The fists of the two patriarchs of the berserker race smashed onto the spirit turtle shield with a loud bang. It was as though the scene had frozen. After a brief pause, the spirit turtle shield shone with a bedazzling halo, and a shockwave surged with a wanton might. Snap! The spirit turtle shield shattered. The gigantic sword and dragon-headed walking stick were repelled. The two patriarchs of the berserker race took half a step back as well. The Dragon Phoenix true body was in an even worse state. He fell rapidly and smashed heavily into the ground with a bang, causing sand and rocks to fly everywhere and dust billowed. Cough cough. The Dragon Phoenix true body coughed out a mouthful of blood and felt an intense pain all over his body, causing his tendons and bones to crack. After the four patriarchs of the primordial races released their divine powers, their strength increased exponentially. The power of that divine power was way too strong. Although the spirit turtle shield blocked most of the power of the divine powers, there was still a lot of it that surged into his body and caused quite a bit of impact. Young master, Long Song, and the others exclaimed when they saw that. Don't come over. The voice of the Dragon Phoenix true body sounded with an unquestionable tone. Long Song and the others stopped hurriedly. The dragons knew that if they charged forward rashly, they would only be a burden to the Dragon Phoenix true body, and would only be a burden. Long Song withdrew a transmission talisman from his storage bag and tore it instantly. The talisman transformed into a streak of light and sped out of Savage Palace. Bang! Before the streak of light could fly out of Savage Palace, it was grabbed by a gigantic palm and crushed instantly. The figure of the Savage Palace's young master appeared. Chapter 1543. Manhu. Long Song was enraged and shouted, "What are you doing? If the young master dies in Savage Palace, prepare to suffer the wrath of the dragons." When he heard that, a hint of fear flashed through the eyes of the young master of the barbarian race. The young master of the barbarian race clenched his fist slightly and said in a deep voice, "Long Song, your young master was the one who broke the rules first. You can't blame the barbarian race for attacking." Even so, the tone of the young master of the barbarian race softened. The young master of the barbarian race continued, "Furthermore, even if you send a message back to the Dragon Bone Valley now, it will definitely be too late. Long Emma won't be able to last that long against the combined forces of the four patriarchs of the primordial races." Boom! Before he could finish his sentence, a loud bang sounded from the battlefield. The middle-aged ancestor god and the old woman had summoned their dermic treasures and chased after him, slashing down viciously at the place where the Dragon Phoenix true body landed. The gigantic sword split the ground of Savage Palace into two. The dragon-headed walking stick released a divine power and created a huge pit in the ground. "Master!" Solitary Cloud cried out tragically with bloodshot eyes. He wanted to charge forward and fight the middle-aged ancestor god and the old woman, but he was held back by Long Song. "The young master isn't dead yet," Long Song hollered. True enough, there was no sign of the Dragon Phoenix true body in the gigantic pit on the ground. The attacks of the two ancestor gods missed. The expressions of the middle-aged ancestor god and the old woman changed slightly. All of a sudden, a chilling killing intent descended as the figure of the Dragon Phoenix true body appeared behind the old woman. Its 5 claws blotted out the skies as it grabbed towards the old woman. "Watch out!" The middle-aged ancestor god hollered and swung the gigantic sword in his hand, slashing towards the Dragon Phoenix true body. The two experts of the barbarian race charged from behind as well. The Dragon Phoenix true body frowned slightly and flapped its 2 pairs of gigantic wings. It turned into a scarlet gold beam of light and vanished from the spot. It was too fast. The attacks of the 4 patriarchs missed. 2 pairs of wings. The 4 patriarchs were slightly taken aback. They could clearly see that on the back of the Dragon Phoenix true body, other than the pair of crimson wings, there was an even larger pair of golden wings. The two pairs of wings flickered with resplendent light. They were beautiful and flawless. The second ability of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, extreme speed. Over the years of cultivation in the ancestral dragon land, the dragon phoenix true body's comprehension of this remarkable power had become deeper and deeper, and its coordination with the dragon phoenix wings had also become more tacit. The current dragon phoenix true body was much faster than when he was escaping from Penglai Island. Under the siege of the 4 patriarchs of the primordial races, the dragon phoenix true body relied on its extreme speed and was still able to move around with ease. Although the 4 patriarchs of the primordial races were powerful, they could not touch the true body of the dragon phoenix. Not only that, if the 2 ancestral gods were to let down their guard, they would be struck by the dragon phoenix true body's killer moves and be in constant danger. No, the middle-aged elder god was secretly alarmed. If this continued, once the divine powers on their bodies dissipated and the phantom of the heavenly gods disappeared, they would instantly be disadvantaged in terms of strength. At that time, the 4 of them would definitely not be able to defend against the dragon phoenix's attacks. We have to force him to fight us head-on. The middle-aged elder god sent a voice transmission to the old woman as he chased. I'll go deal with those dragon's brats and force him to appear. The old woman sneered. After saying that, she left the battlefield in a flash and lunged towards Long Song and the others with a murderous aura. The dragons were shocked. They could not defend against the power of the ancestor god. Even the 5-clawed divine dragon, Long Song, was as insignificant as an ant against the power of the ancestor god. Boom! Suddenly, a gigantic and thick stone pillar descended from the void. The stone pillar was grayish-white, with a 5-clawed divine dragon crawling on it. It emitted an ancient aura and a wanton might. It was violent and sharp, as though it wanted to suppress all races. It was the other innate divine power of the dragon phoenix true body, the ancestral dragon divine pillar. The ancestral dragon divine pillar descended from the skies and was tens of thousands of feet tall. It created a huge hole in the roof of Savage Palace and smashed down towards the old woman. Good timing. The old woman's expression was unchanged as she channeled her blood chi and swung her dragon-headed walking stick towards the ancestral dragon divine pillar. Boom! There was a deafening bang. Cracks appeared on the body of the ancestral dragon divine pillar, and it dissipated into nothingness in the blink of an eye. The middle-aged elder god charged over as well and swung the gigantic sword in his hands. He ignored the dragon phoenix true body and charged towards Long Song and the others instead. He knew very well that it would be useless even if he attacked the dragon phoenix true body. Before his gigantic sword descended, the dragon phoenix true body used its extreme speed divine power and left first. What he wanted to do was to force the dragon phoenix true body to attack them and take them head-on. The 2 patriarchs of the barbarian race frowned slightly. As Mahayana patriarchs, it was bullying to begin with for them to attack a half-martial ancestor. Now that they were using such despicable methods, the 2 patriarchs of the barbarian race were disgusted. The barbarian race had always been open and aboveboard in their actions. When they saw that, the 2 patriarchs of the barbarian race hesitated for a moment and did not charge forward. The dragon phoenix true body appeared and stood in front of Long Song and the others, glaring at the middle-aged elder god and old woman, who were charging over with a cold expression. Young master, leave this place. Don't worry about us. Long Song realized that the patriarchs of the primordial races could not harm the dragon phoenix true body at all, and that was the reason why they attacked them repeatedly. That's right, leave first. Long Shi urged as well. No one can leave today. The old woman said sinisterly. Leave. The dragon phoenix true body's gaze was burning and murderous as he said slowly. Since I chose to attack, I have no intention of leaving. Furthermore, you guys won't be able to leave today either. The 2 ancestor gods wanted to kill the dragon phoenix true body. However, the 2 of them did not realize that the dragon phoenix true body wanted to kill them as well. The blood chi within the dragon phoenix true body surged and let out the sound of a tsunami. His aura rose continuously without any signs of stopping. Around the dragon phoenix true body, crimson demonic chi rolled and surged. Within the blazing flames, one after another, terrifying and lifelike primordial demon kings with frightening gazes condensed rapidly. Wild Ox Demon King, Stone Bear Demon King, Anaconda Demon King, Sanguine Ape Demon King, Divine Chariot Demon King, Hell Tiger Demon King, Wind Leopard Demon King, Desolate Ocean Dragon King, Sea Calming Turtle. After the 9 Demon Kings, the 10th Demon King appeared, the Golden-Winged Great Rock. The 10 Demon Kings were born from the flames and descended. Their bodies were filled with powerful auras, and their claws were sharp. Their demon eyes shone with a ferocious glint as they surrounded the dragon phoenix true body. Roar! Under the protection of the 10 Demon Kings, the dragon phoenix true body's aura was torrential as it reared its head and roared, releasing a piercing roar. The 10 Demon Kings roared at the same time. That roar resonated and echoed in the savage palace. The entire hall began to shake and dust rustled down, as though it was about to collapse at the next moment. The young master of the barbarian race was struck by a gigantic air wave and fell to the ground with a shocked expression. The 2 ancestor gods that charged over were the first to bear the brunt of the impact. Their ears hurt from the roar, and their minds buzzed. The faces of the 2 ancestor gods turned pale. Chapter 1544. That's a bloodline phenomenon. The pupils of the 2 ancestral gods constricted slightly. What sort of bloodline phenomenon was this? The aura of the 10 Demon Kings was practically sweeping through the 9 heavens and 10 lands. The illusory figures of the heavenly gods behind the 2 ancestral gods turned blurry against the aura of the 10 Demon Kings and started swaying, as though they were about to dissipate. After comprehending the second divine power of the light ball in the consciousness of the dragon phoenix true body, another Demon King was added to the bloodline phenomenon, and its power increased exponentially. The old woman's heart skipped a beat, as though she had thought of something. Suddenly, the old woman retreated and arrived beside the corpse of the imperial heaven godchild. She scooped out casually and removed the storage ring from the imperial heaven godchild's finger. Kill! The dragon phoenix true body frowned slightly and seemed to have realized something. He controlled the 10 Demon Kings and charged towards the middle-aged ancestral god and the old woman. The 10 Demon Kings howled and surged with demonic chi, tearing the world apart and devouring thousands of miles. The old woman's spirit consciousness moved, and she took out a jade slip from the storage bag of the imperial heaven godchild. She laughed menacingly at the dragon phoenix true body and crushed the jade slip. Buzz! The void trembled. The jade slip shattered and burst out with an incomparably dazzling light, dispersing all the darkness in the savage palace. Rays of light filled the air, containing a terrifying power. Not good. That's the Protoss's grand divine power, Great Light. The 2 patriarchs of the barbarian race exclaimed and retreated rapidly, avoiding the streaks of light. If one wanted to seal a divine ability in a jade slip, one would need to use an extremely brilliant method. The grand divine power sealed within the jade slip was a life-saving measure, prepared for the imperial heaven godchild. However, no one expected the dragon phoenix true body to attack without warning and release multiple killing moves consecutively. Within a few breaths, the imperial heaven godchild was killed. He did not even have the chance to use the jade slip. Sealing a divine power within a jade slip would definitely cause a great loss of power. Even so, the jade slip was sealed with a grand divine power after all. The light was resplendent and pervasive. Even if Su Zimo released his extreme speed divine power, there was nowhere for him to hide. Every ray of light emitted by the Great Light technique was as thin as a strand of hair. It was difficult to see with the naked eye, but it contained an extremely terrifying power. The 10 Demon Kings were enveloped by the Great Light technique and revealed looks of pain. Their flesh was penetrated, and they were drenched in blood. Even if the power of this ability was weakened, it was still enough to kill a Mahayana realm old ancestor. Even the 2 forefathers of the barbarian tribe did not dare to get close. The physical bodies of the barbarian race were indeed strong, and their defensive power was astonishing. However, they were only at the early stage of the Mahayana realm, and had only comprehended some minor abilities. They could not resist the power of a major ability at all. Long Emo, you will definitely die today. The old woman laughed sinisterly. Almost at the same time the great light technique descended, the 10 great demon kings were destroyed by this great divine ability. Their bodies were pierced and riddled with holes. Pooh! The dragon phoenix true body also spat out a large mouthful of blood. The wings on his body fell one after another, and his face turned pale. He had unleashed all of his means. If there were only 2 ancestral gods, then with the combat strength of the dragon phoenix true body, he would absolutely be able to kill them. But now, this tiny jade slip had completely changed the situation. As though it had sensed the danger that the dragon phoenix true body was in, the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness circulated automatically in his body. After the 10 demon kings dissipated, they turned into thick demonic chi. Scarlet demonic chi surged, and in the blink of an eye, a blood-colored butterfly appeared behind the dragon phoenix true body. The blood butterfly spread its wings with 2 bright moons imprinted on them. It was like a pair of cold eyes that glared at the 2 ancestral gods. The blood butterfly was only 10 feet tall. However, the 2 ancestral gods felt their scalps tingle, and their hearts skip a beat when they were targeted by it. What's that? The middle-aged ancestral god mumbled. All of a sudden, the wings on the blood butterfly's back trembled gently. Although that slight tremor was almost imperceptible, it caused a shocking storm. The surrounding void was distorting, deforming, collapsing and collapsing. Even the rays of light that permeated the area were distorted and distorted as they entered the void. Against the flapping of the blood-colored butterfly, a rare darkness appeared around the dragon phoenix true body. The 2 powers collided in the savage palace. A moment later, the light dissipated gradually. The blood-colored butterfly had already vanished as well. The dragon phoenix true body had a dispirited expression and closed his eyes as he fell from midair. His body was drenched in blood and was penetrated by the power of light. He was severely injured. Actually, if not for the protection of the 10 demon kings and the final defense of the blood-colored butterfly, the great light technique would have been enough to kill the dragon phoenix true body. Although he had a taboo body, he was only a half-martial ancestor and had yet to take that step. That single step was the difference between heaven and earth. The power of a great divine power had completely exceeded the scope of what he could endure. He's not dead even after that. The old woman shrieked with a look of disbelief. After all, that's a taboo dragon phoenix and his life force is way too strong. The middle-aged ancestral god said coldly. However, it doesn't matter anymore. The dragon phoenix is severely injured and is like a fish on the chopping block for us to slaughter. Young master! Long Tsong and the others shouted and wanted to charge forward. However, a tall figure appeared in front of the dragons and blocked their path. It was the young master of the barbarian race. Man who, it's you again! Long Tsong's expression turned cold, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Brother Long Tsong, calm down. Man who said in a muffled voice. What's the difference between you heading forward now and courting death? Even so, we can't let the Protoss kill the young master of the dragons. Long Tsong shouted. Right then, 2 patriarchs of the barbarian race appeared in a flash and stood in front of the dragon phoenix true body, blocking the path of the 2 ancestral gods. What are you guys doing? The middle-aged ancestral god's expression changed slightly as he questioned loudly. The patriarch of the barbarian race on the left said in a deep voice, Fellow Taoist, the barbarian race can't absolve ourselves from the blame for the death of the divine child in the savage palace. However, the mistake has already been made. The barbarian race can't commit a second mistake. The other patriarch of the barbarian race nodded as well. If you guys kill the taboo dragon phoenix here, how are we going to answer to the dragons? Why? The barbarian race still wants to protect him. The old woman shrieked. Don't forget that he was the one who killed our young master of the Protoss first. A life for a life is only right. What's there to not answer for? This matter is of great importance. The 2 of us can't make the decision. One of the patriarchs of the barbarian race said hesitantly. This is a matter between the Protoss and the dragons. The barbarian race doesn't want to get involved. Fufu, the middle-aged ancestral god sneered. Right now, Tianhuang mainland is in chaos, and the primordial 6 races have already joined forces to rule over Tianhuang mainland once more. Does the barbarian race want to stay in a corner and hide in this desolate and uninhabited place? The ancient war was completely because the primordial 9 races were severely injured in the primordial war. That was why the humans took advantage of us and seized the opportunity to rise. The humans are just a bunch of opportunistic ants. It's time to take back the control of Tianhuang mainland after letting those ants rule for so long. Are the barbarian race willing to suffer a crushing defeat in the ancient war? Don't the barbarian race want to rule over Tianhuang mainland and rule over the 10,000 races once more? The continuous questioning of the middle-aged ancestral god caused the hearts of the 2 patriarchs of the barbarian race to stir. The 4 patriarchs of the primordial races were in a stalemate. None of them noticed that the dragon phoenix's true body was gradually changing not far away. Chapter 1545. The Great Light Art was a great divine power of the Protoss, and was extremely powerful. Despite the resistance of the 10 demon kings and the blood-colored butterfly, streams of light still seeped into the dragon phoenix true body. Although the light seemed gentle, it contained fatal killing intent. Light could bring about vitality, but it could also cause destruction. The vitality of the dragon phoenix true body's flesh and organs gradually declined under the infiltration of the light. His flesh shriveled rapidly, and the flames on his body extinguished. His wings dimmed and gradually withered. This was a great divine power after all. Even with the dragon phoenix true body's shocking regeneration capabilities, it was useless. As though they possessed spirituality, the light burrowed into the consciousness of the dragon phoenix true body and tore through the consciousness without any obstruction. The light even wanted to kill the essence spirit of the dragon phoenix true body. However, the moment the light tore through the consciousness, they were slightly stunned. This was truly a consciousness. A massive and pure spirit consciousness materialized and formed an ocean. It was dark, cold, and deep. There was a gigantic spirit turtle floating in the middle of the ocean. A dignified and sharp cry sounded from the firmaments. A golden beam of light soared into the 9 heavens and flew thousands of kilometers with a flap of its wings. The golden-winged great rock's gaze was sharp as it circled in the skies and glared at the ball of light that had barged into the consciousness. In the middle of the consciousness, 2 fist-sized balls of light hovered around the scarlet-haired essence spirit. They contained a terrifying aura, and no one knew what they were nurturing. The light of the great light art gathered rapidly and formed a resplendent spear in the blink of an eye, piercing towards the scarlet-haired essence spirit. Whoosh! The spear of light tore through the air with an ear-piercing sound. The spear of light contained the power of divine powers, and even the flesh of the dragon phoenix true body could not defend against it. The scarlet-haired essence spirit would definitely die if it was pierced. The spirit turtle floated in the consciousness motionlessly. The golden-winged great rock soared in the firmaments, and did not act rashly either. The 2 demon kings merely glared at the spear of light with cold expressions. Just as the spear was about to pierce the scarlet-haired essence spirit, a ball of light that surrounded him floated over and blocked in front of the scarlet-haired essence spirit. Poof! He didn't know if it was because the spear of light was too powerful, or because the ball of light was too weak. Light descended and instantly pierced through the ball of light. Time seemed to stop for a moment. Even the soaring golden-winged great pung paused in midair. The next moment, rock shattering shocked the heavens, the earth quaking and the mountains shaking. Within this ball of light, an extremely terrifying aura burst forth. A gigantic demonic beast descended, exuding a savage and ancient aura. This was a divine elephant. The legendary divine elephant had boundless strength. With a single move, it could cause mountains to crumble and the earth to crack. With a swing of its trunk, it could cause the stars in the sky to fall. On the massive body of this divine elephant, every inch of its flesh and blood was filled with explosive strength. The most conspicuous part of this divine elephant were the tusks on both sides of its trunk. Ordinary divine elephants only had a pair of tusks, but this divine elephant had 3 pairs of 6. 6 ivory tusks that were as white as jade grew on both sides of his cheeks. They were sharp and seemed to contain divinity, as if they could pierce through everything. The 11th Demon King was born. 6-tusked divine elephant. Roar! The 6-tusked divine elephant swung its trunk and roared into the skies, letting out a loud and furious roar. The 6 tusks were filled with a terrifying aura. Beneath the feet of the 6-tusked divine elephant, pieces of land condensed and expanded continuously, as though they were corporeal. Initially, in the consciousness of the dragon phoenix true body, there was only the desolate sea that was condensed from spirit consciousness. In the desolate sea, there were spirit turtles floating. In the skies, a great pung spread its wings. But now, the 6-tusked divine elephant had descended, and a miracle had appeared, manifesting pieces of land. The wild ox demon king, stone bear demon king, anaconda demon king, sanguine ape demon king. With the appearance of this piece of land, the demon kings that did not appear previously descended and materialized. The 11 demon kings roared in the consciousness of the dragon phoenix true body, with a terrifying might and torrential demonic chi. The moment the spear of light pierced through the ball of light, and the 6-tusked divine elephant descended, it was shattered by the trunk of the divine elephant, and dissipated into the world. The scarlet-haired essence spirit woke up, and exchanged glances with the 6-tusked divine elephant. The moment their gazes met, the mind of the dragon phoenix true body rumbled, and a mysterious divine power comprehension gradually surged into his mind. At the end of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, there were 4 divine powers. The 3rd divine power was born. Of the 4 divine powers, the first 2 were more focused on support and survival. For example, the spirit turtle shield possessed an absolutely terrifying defense. The dragon phoenix true body was at the half-martial ancestor realm, and even relied on the spirit turtle shield to defend against the attacks of the 4 patriarchs. As for the golden-winged great rock's extreme speed divine power, it was absolute speed. With the extreme speed divine power, the dragon phoenix true body could roam freely and come and go without a trace against the combined forces of the 4 patriarchs of the primordial races. However, the killing power of those 2 divine powers was not strong, and did not have any offensive capabilities. As for the 3rd divine power awakened by the dragon phoenix true body, it was absolute strength. The 6-tusked divine elephant was the god of land in the great wilderness. On land, even the dragon king of desolate ocean had to retreat. No living being could match it in terms of strength. On land, the 6-tusked divine elephant could sweep through everything. The 3rd divine power, 6-tusked divine power. Once this divine power was awakened, his strength would increase exponentially. If he could cultivate 2 elephant tusks, his strength would increase by 2 times. This increase in strength was not purely the power of his physical body. It was his bloodline, essence spirit, dermic powers, and even the power of divine powers. All of his strength would increase by more than 2 times. If he could cultivate 4 divine elephant tusks, his strength would increase by 4 times. If he cultivated it to its peak, his strength could reach a maximum of 6 times. This was a divine power that could truly break through the restrictions of one's cultivation realm. After comprehending the 6-tusked divine power, a terrifying aura burst forth from the dragon phoenix true body. An incomparably powerful divine power descended and surged into the dragon phoenix true body, sweeping through his organs, bones, and bloodlines. Almost in the blink of an eye, the remnant power of light within the dragon phoenix true body was expelled. Under the impact of the divine power, the life force of the dragon phoenix true body recovered at a visible speed. The shriveled flesh expanded rapidly and was brimming with vitality. The wings that had already dimmed also flickered with crimson light. Before long, the flames of the dragon phoenix burned once more. Under the tempering of the divine power, the body, bloodline, and even essence spirit of the dragon phoenix true body transformed once more, and became even stronger. The aura of the dragon phoenix true body rose rapidly. Actually, under normal circumstances, the dragon phoenix true body needed to step into the Mahayana realm to comprehend the 3rd divine power. However, due to the impact of the great light technique, The ball of light in the dragon phoenix true body's consciousness shattered in advance, and the third divine power descended. Comprehending this divine power also resulted in an even greater change. The dragon phoenix true body sensed the true Mahayana realm. He had already touched the barrier of the Mahayana realm. As long as the dragon phoenix true body wanted to, he could make use of the power of this divine power to break through the barrier before him. However, the dragon phoenix true body still maintained his rationality and did not do so. This was the wilderness palace. In front of him were two other elder gods. If he broke through here, it was inevitable that something would happen. Chapter 1546. The expressions of the two patriarchs changed when they sensed the aura behind them. What happened? The two barbarian progenitors instinctively turned their heads to look. Before they could see what was going on, they felt a scorching aura surge towards them, and a gigantic figure swayed before them. The next moment, the tall bodies of the two patriarchs were lifted uncontrollably. Long Song and the others, as well as the barbarians, raised their heads instinctively and watched everything with agape mouths in shock. In the void, a dragon phoenix that was burning with scarlet flames flapped its wings and hovered in midair. It grabbed a patriarch of the barbarian race in each of its claws with a torrential aura. Those were patriarchs of the primordial races. However, against the claws of the dragon phoenix true body, they were lifted up casually like two chicks. The dragon phoenix's claws were gripped on the heads of the two patriarchs. The two patriarchs were enraged and wanted to break free. However, the moment they moved, they felt a sharp pain in their scalps, as though some warm liquid was flowing down their cheeks. They were bleeding. The bodies of the barbarian race were the strongest. The divine powers released by the two patriarchs of the barbarian race were such that even the dermic treasures of the Protoss might not be able to injure their bodies. But now, the heads of the two patriarchs of the barbarian race were pierced by the dragon phoenix's claws. The two patriarchs of the barbarian race were pale and shocked, not daring to move. They could clearly sense that if they continued struggling, the sharp claws of the dragon phoenix true body would be able to pierce their heads and kill their essence spirits with a single move of its spirit consciousness. At that time, it would be useless even if they could revive with a drop of blood. What exactly happened to Long Mo? He clearly hasn't entered the Mahayana realm, but he seems to be even stronger and more terrifying than just now. Long Mo won't really go crazy and kill us all, right? The two patriarchs of the barbarian race were shocked and afraid as their imaginations ran wild. Right then, the dragon phoenix true body grabbed the two patriarchs of the barbarian race and flung them behind casually. Like two mountains, the two patriarchs of the barbarian race turned into two black shadows and slammed into the walls of Savage Palace. Crack! The boulders on the wall shattered. The two progenitors of the barbarian tribe sucked in a cold breath. They grimaced in pain and slowly slid down the wall. Patriarch! The young master of the barbarian tribe cried out in surprise and rushed forward to help the two barbarian tribe ancestors up. It's fine, it's fine. Although the two progenitors of the barbarian tribe were casually thrown against the wall, a hint of joy flashed through their eyes. What happened to the young master? Long Shi was worried. Don't worry, the young master is still rational, Long Song said in a low voice. Young master didn't kill the two barbarian ancestors because they stood out and blocked the two ancestor gods. As for the two progenitors of the Berserker tribe, they had worked together with the two progenitors in the beginning. Young master, you threw them against the wall as a small punishment. Just as Long Song was whispering to the dragons, a change happened on the battlefield. The dragon phoenix true body's expression was cold as she approached the two ancestral gods unhurriedly. I thought that you had already broken through to the ancestor realm. So you're only a half-martial ancestor. The middle-aged ancestor god scanned with his spirit consciousness and could not help but heave a sigh of relief. He calmed down and sneered. The old woman said coldly, "If you're a half-martial ancestor, you'll definitely die today. Kill." The two ancestor gods hollered and charged towards the dragon phoenix true body. The power of divine power surged from the two ancestor gods and shone with divine light. The heavenly god phantoms exuded endless might, causing the auras of the two ancestor gods to flourish even more. The dragon phoenix true body's gaze was like a torch. Suddenly, a gigantic divine elephant appeared behind him. It swung its trunk and let out an earth-shaking roar at the two ancestor gods. Roar! The divine elephant let out a long cry and tore through the void. As though they were frightened, the heavenly god phantoms behind the two ancestor gods trembled slightly and revealed fear. Against the might and aura of the divine elephant, the two heavenly god phantoms dissipated and turned into nothingness. That scene caused an uproar. What did that mean? The divine powers released by the two ancestor gods were neutralized by the divine elephant? The descent of the six-tusked divine elephant shook the world. Of course, the six-tusked divine elephant only had 2 tusks on its cheeks. After all, the dragon phoenix true body had just awakened that divine power. Being able to cultivate 2 tusks was already his limit. Even so, 2 tusks were already powerful enough. This meant that the dragon phoenix true body's bloodline, physique, essence spirit, dermic powers, divine powers and everything else would increase by 2 times. What did double mean? Even at the limit of the title manual left behind by the Saber Emperor, it could only increase one's strength by 90%, which was less than double. However, the dragon phoenix true body's strength had increased by 2 times just by awakening the 6-tusked divine power. The dragon phoenix true body stepped forward and reached out with its gigantic and menacing claws, grabbing at the middle-aged ancestor god. That claw caused 5 cracks to appear in the void. The middle-aged ancestor god was shocked, but he still tried his best to calm down. With a low growl, he channeled his blood chi and swung the gigantic sword in his hand, slashing down at the dragon phoenix true body's claw. Clang! The gigantic sword clashed against the dragon phoenix true body's claw, and sparks flew everywhere. Immediately after, the middle-aged ancestor god's eyes widened. He felt a torrential force crushing down along the dragon phoenix true body's claw. Against the dragon phoenix true body's claw, his dharma treasure was like a toy. In the face of that power, he was as insignificant as an ant. Ching! The dragon phoenix true body's claw tore the middle-aged ancestor god apart, causing him to be drenched in blood, and his organs to scatter all over the ground with a bloody stench. Beside the dragon phoenix true body, the old woman swung her dragon-headed walking stick. The moment she charged forward, a scarlet shadow appeared before her eyes. Poof! The old woman's body was whipped into a blood mist by the casual swing of the dragon phoenix true body's phoenix tail. It was a crushing force. The 2 ancestral gods reacted extremely quickly. Their primordial spirits left their bodies and escaped at the first moment. Before long, the middle-aged ancestor god used blood rebirth to condense a new body and return to normal. However, his face was a little pale. Blood rebirth was not omnipotent. Each blood rebirth was extremely taxing on one's essence spirit. Given the current power of the middle-aged ancestor god's essence spirit, he could only release blood rebirth 3 times at most. By the 4th time, his essence spirit would be exhausted, and he would not be able to condense a body even if he wanted to. The speed at which the old woman condensed her body was clearly much slower. The old woman was in her twilight years to begin with, and her lifespan was reduced by barren initially. Just now, her body exploded after a huge battle, and her life force declined rapidly. The blood rebirth this time round almost exhausted the power of the old woman's essence spirit. Although the old woman was reborn, she seemed to have aged more than 1,000 years in that short period of time. Her hair was white, and the wrinkles on her face were even more numerous and deeper. Her body was filled with a rotting aura. Chapter 1547. Even though the middle-aged ancestor god tried his best to restrain himself, he could not help but reveal a hint of shock in his eyes. "What method are you using?" The middle-aged ancestor god gulped and asked loudly. "How did your strength increase so much in such a short period of time?" "That's impossible." Even though he saw it with his own eyes and experienced it personally, the middle-aged ancestor god was still unwilling to believe it. Even a small divine power would not bring about such a shocking transformation. "Do you want to know?" The dragon phoenix true body looked at the 2 ancestor gods with an indifferent expression. There was no emotion in her eyes as she said coldly, Go to hell and ask. There are countless innocent living beings from the primordial war waiting for you there. In the primordial era, the Protoss invaded and intentionally provoked the three great taboos to kill each other, triggering an unprecedented tragic primordial war. In that war, countless living beings died and countless races perished. The Protoss was the culprit. Only the two ancestor gods could understand the deeper meaning behind Su Zimo's words. What are you talking about? I don't understand. The middle-aged ancestor god's gaze was evasive as he forced a chuckle. This was a secret of the primordial era that had long been buried in time. Even within the Protoss, only the patriarch was qualified to know about it, let alone the other races. The middle-aged ancestor god did not believe that the dragon phoenix true body would know about these secrets. The barbarians frowned slightly. They could vaguely tell that the dragon phoenix true body seemed to be implying something. However, the barbarians were still confused. Longemo, a patriarch of the barbarian race, took a deep breath and stood out, saying in a deep voice, "Now that things have come to this, you can't continue making mistakes. You can't be ruthless." The barbarians were caught in the middle between the dragons and the Protoss, and were in a terrible state. Because the Protoss and dragons arrived at the same time, the barbarians were initially planning how to deal with the two primordial races and obtain the greatest benefits. However, they did not expect the dragon phoenix true body to be decisive and kill the imperial heaven god child directly. With that, their plans were completely disrupted. The current situation was completely out of the control of the barbarians. Right now, the barbarians only wanted to settle the matter as soon as possible and extricate themselves from this matter. They couldn't let the two ancestral gods kill the dragon phoenix true form, but they couldn't let the dragon phoenix true form kill the remaining two ancestral gods either. The barbarians wanted to strike a balance between both sides, but they did not expect that they would end up in a dilemma. The young master of the barbarian race also stood out and smiled bitterly. "Brother Longemo, the barbarian race doesn't want any gifts. I really can't accept your gift." "It's fine if you don't want this gift." The dragon phoenix true body's gaze was cold, and her tone was resolute as she said slowly, "However, I must kill these two people." Actually, the moment she stepped into the savage palace and saw the Protoss, the dragon phoenix true body had already wanted to kill him. The so-called gift was of course just an excuse. Killing the Protoss would force the barbarians to make a choice. Secondly, it was for the truth behind the primeval war. The dragon phoenix true body felt indignant. It was unfair for Night Spirit, for the countless lives that perished in the archaic war, for the countless races that were wiped out, for the injustice. The moment she said that, the dragon phoenix true body charged forward once more. A tremendous might descended and a violent wind howled, sweeping up scorching flames that surged over. "Longemo, you're too brazen. This is the barbarian race, not your dragon bone valley." The two patriarchs of the barbarian race were enraged as they touched their storage bags with their thick palms. Taking out their respective dermic treasures, they shouted and charged forward. They could not let the two ancestral gods die in the savage palace as well. Otherwise, the barbarians would have no way out and no choice. One of the barbarians wielded a gigantic stone hammer and smashed it towards the dragon phoenix true body. The dermic treasure of the other patriarch of the barbarian race was a gigantic axe that was also made of an unknown stone. Although the craftsmanship of the two dermic treasures was crude, the power released by the stone hammer and axe was extremely terrifying. The stone hammer descended with a weight of thousands of kilograms. Only the bodies of the barbarians could control such dermic treasures and use them freely. The stone axe slashed down with a might that could split the world apart, creating a berserk air current that slashed towards the dragon phoenix true body. "Get lost." The dragon phoenix true body swung its tail and flapped its wings, hollering coldly. Bang! Bang! The phoenix tail and wings collided against the stone hammer and gigantic axe respectively, sending them flying. The two patriarchs of the barbarian race shuddered as well. The moment they charged forward, they were sent flying at an even faster speed and slammed heavily against the walls of the savage palace. Boom! This time round, the impact on the two barbarians was even greater as they smashed through the gigantic rocks on the walls of the savage palace, creating a human-shaped hole in the wall. Gravel fell and dust billowed. The two patriarchs of the barbarian race were casually sent flying out of the savage palace by the dragon phoenix true body. The young master of the barbarian race had just taken a step forward and was prepared to join forces with the two patriarchs when he saw that. The young master of the barbarian race gulped and retracted his leg that he had taken a step forward. The dragon phoenix true body descended and covered the skies with its claws, sealing off the old woman's escape route without a single gap. The old woman had a hopeless expression as she shrieked, "Long Mo, my Protoss will definitely take revenge for me." The old woman's body was torn apart by the dragon phoenix's claws once more. This time round, the old woman's essence spirit was weakened and could no longer be reborn from a single drop of blood. The speed of her essence spirit became incomparably slow as well. In the blink of an eye, it was torn apart by the dragon phoenix's claws and died. When he saw that, the middle-aged ancestor god's face turned pale, and he was scared out of his wits. He no longer had the guts and courage to fight against the dragon phoenix true body. The middle-aged ancestor god channeled his blood chi and transformed into a streak of divine light that fled out of the savage palace. However, his speed was far inferior to the dragon phoenix true body. Before the middle-aged ancestor god could escape far, the dragon phoenix true body caught up and bit down, devouring the middle-aged ancestor god's entire body. The middle-aged ancestor god's essence spirit hurriedly left his body and escaped from the dragon phoenix true body's mouth by a hair's breadth. Exclamation point. The middle-aged ancestor god's body was torn apart by the dragon phoenix true body, and all his flesh was swallowed into its stomach without a single drop of blood flowing out. The middle-aged ancestor god channeled his essence spirit and wanted to be reborn from a single drop of blood. However, he did not have a single drop of blood left. Swoosh! The wings of the dragon phoenix true body closed and formed a gigantic flame cage that trapped the middle-aged ancestor god within and ignited with raging flames. Ah! 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 The middle-aged ancestor god's essence spirit let out a series of tragic cries within the flames. Within a few breaths, he was burned to ashes by the flames of the dragon phoenix true body. Clang! The dragon phoenix true body spat out the middle-aged ancestor god's storage ring casually, and it fell to the ground. The young master of the barbarian race, Long Song, and the others were dumbfounded. Boom! Outside the savage palace, the two patriarchs of the barbarian race snapped back to their senses and broke free from the rubble. They rushed back with furious expressions. The moment the two patriarchs of the barbarian race rushed into the savage palace, they stopped in their tracks and stared blankly at the scene before them. Everything was over, including the young master of the Protoss and the three ancestor gods. A total of 6 Protoss were wiped out without a single survivor. Chapter 1548. In the depths of Giant Rock Forest, 2 burly men sat opposite each other, with a few jars of strong wine on the table that emitted a fragrance. One of the burly men was more than 30 feet tall. Even if he sat cross-legged, he was close to 20 feet tall, and was shaped like an abyss. His body was like a mountain. The burly man had a dignified gaze. He was the leader of the barbarian race, Man Feng. The person opposite the burly man had scarlet hair that burned like flames. His face was rough, and his beard was unkempt. However, he exuded a ferocious aura. What? Suddenly, Man Feng threw the wine jar on the ground and slammed the table. He was shocked as he glared at the scarlet-haired burly man opposite him and asked, "Long Ran, is what you said just now true?" The scarlet-haired burly man was the red-headed ghost of the dragons. The red-headed ghost nodded. "It's absolutely true." Man Feng's expression flickered with uncertainty. After pondering for a while, he frowned and said, "Long Ran, for the sake of our friendship, I'll turn a blind eye to that little bastard outside of your dragon race no matter what he does. However, you can't spout nonsense about something like this." Long Ran rolled his eyes. "Man Z, we've been through life and death situations together. How can I lie to you about something like this?" Man Feng pondered for a long time before nodding. "I definitely believe you. However, the problem is how to make the other patriarchs of the barbarian race believe me. The decision of the barbarian race this time concerns the fate of the barbarian race. Although I'm the leader, I can't make the decision. The red-headed ghost waved it off. It's fine, I have evidence. Manfang's eyes lit up. However, he was still doubtful. After all, it's been so long since the primordial war. What evidence do you have? The evidence isn't with me. However, everything will be revealed during the convention of the myriad races. The red-headed ghost said. Manfang said in a deep voice, "All right, I believe you, and we can even let the barbarian race participate in the convention of the myriad races. However, before this matter is clarified, I can't guarantee that the barbarian race will join forces with the dragons." "No problem," the red-headed ghost said confidently. "The truth will naturally be revealed during the convention of the myriad races." Pausing for a moment, the red-headed ghost turned around, and his gaze seemed to cross the voids to land in the wilderness palace. Suddenly he said, "However, you have to arrange a secret chamber for Long Mo now. He's about to break through. Also, I'll remind you the brat he was able to kill an early-stage Mahayana martial ancestor when he was at the half-martial ancestor realm. Once he reaches the Mahayana realm and becomes a martial ancestor, he will be at the same level as us." Manfang grumbled. "I know, you're the one who protects him the most. If it weren't for you, would I have let him act so arrogantly in the barbarian tribe's territory? He doesn't know that I came out this time. You don't have to tell him." He knew that the red-headed ghost was thinking about his child. 10,000 years ago, it was because of the death of the red-headed ghost's child that he went berserk and started a massacre, causing a catastrophe. The red-headed ghost had long regarded Su Zimo as his child. He did not want the tragedy of back then to happen to Su Zimo again. That was the reason why he secretly followed behind the Dragon Phoenix true body and the others to protect them in secret this time round. He even arrived at the barbarian race a step ahead and found the clan leader to explain the pros and cons. Otherwise, the barbarian race would have been alarmed by the huge commotion caused by the wilderness palace. Why would there be no other patriarchs after so long? In the wilderness palace, the young master of the barbarian race and the two patriarchs looked at the dilapidated wilderness palace, the ground filled with blood, and the corpses of the Protoss. Their expressions were terrible, and they were enraged. The young master of the barbarian race clenched his fists slightly and grit his teeth. "Long Mo, this is the barbarian race. Aren't you being too domineering by massacring us?" Long Mo, a patriarch of the barbarian race, hollered as well. "You're so arrogant and bloodthirsty that you want to force the barbarian race to submit. Let me tell you, the barbarian race will definitely not join forces with you. It's not that I'm bloodthirsty, it's that the Protoss deserves to be killed," the Dragon Phoenix true body said indifferently. What a joke." The other patriarch of the barbarian race sneered. "The barbarian race will report today's matter to the Protoss truthfully. Leave, the barbarian race does not welcome you." The Dragon Phoenix true body was silent. He did not wish for today's matter to end in this manner. He was indignant. However, he knew in his heart that if he were to reveal the truth of the primordial war now, he would only be mocked by the barbarian race who would not believe him. After all, the truth was way too shocking. It overturned everyone's understanding completely. The barbarian race would only think that he was framing them and finding an excuse to kill the Protoss. However, the Dragon Phoenix true body was still indignant if he were to leave the barbarian race just like that. However, Long Song and the others did not think that way. The Dragon Phoenix true body wreaked havoc in Savage Palace and killed the Imperial Heaven God Child and 3 ancestor gods. If he could still escape unscathed, they would probably wake up laughing in their dreams. "Young master, don't think about it. Let's leave this place first." Long Song sent a voice transmission secretly. "We have to consider the matter of joining forces with the barbarian race. We can't stay here for long." "Master, let's hurry and leave," Solitary Cloud urged as well. The dragons had anxious expressions, afraid that the barbarian race would go back on their word. "Hold on." Right then, the young master of the barbarian race suddenly shouted, "It's over!" Long Song and the others felt their hearts skip a beat as they lamented internally. The young master of the barbarian race had a strange expression. He did not denounce them with a murderous aura as Long Song and the others had expected. Instead, he seemed a little bashful. Cough, cough. The young master of the barbarian race coughed gently and arrived before the dragon phoenix true body, cupping his fist slightly. "Well, Brother Long Mo, just now, I've offended you with my words. Please forgive me." A look of surprise flashed through the eyes of the dragon phoenix true body. Long Song and the others were even more dumbfounded. What was going on? In just a short while, the attitude of the barbarian race towards them had undergone a shocking reversal. The dragon's first reaction was that the barbarian race was cheating. However, on second thought, the dragons realized that the barbarian race had always been upright and clear in their dealings. They spoke their minds and never hid anything. If they truly wanted to denounce them, they would definitely not have such an attitude. However, the dragons were puzzled and could not understand what had happened. The young master of the barbarian race made an inviting gesture. "Brother Long Mo, please come in." The dragon phoenix true body pondered for a moment before shifting his gaze to the two patriarchs of the barbarian race. He said hesitantly, "That's not good, right? The two seniors of the barbarian race just reprimanded me angrily and said that the barbarian race does not welcome me." The two patriarchs of the barbarian race blushed and almost found a hole to hide in. The two patriarchs of the barbarian race grit their teeth in hatred. They had lived for so long. How could they not tell that the dragon phoenix true body was deliberately saying it for them to hear? The two patriarchs of the barbarian race walked over slowly and cupped their fists towards the dragon phoenix true body, saying with embarrassed expressions, "Please forgive us, young master of the barbarian race. We dragons are impulsive and straightforward. Please don't take it to heart." Sure. The dragon phoenix true body smiled gently. "Seniors, you're being too serious." The young master of the barbarian race walked over and hugged the dragon phoenix true body's arm, smiling. "Brother Long Mo, let's drink to our heart's content and let bygones be bygones. When the time comes, we'll head to the convention of the myriad races together." Chapter 1549. Kunlun Ruins, Exquisite Secret Realm. After 100 years, Su Zimo returned to this place once more. After all these years of cultivation, Su Zimo had gained a lot. He had already entered the half-martial ancestor realm and comprehended a trace of divine power. However, he still could not break through. There were no changes in the exquisite secret realm. However, there was one less person besides Su Zimo. Nianqi had left. Su Zimo looked at the secret realm and could not help but recall the scene when he, Extreme Fire and Nianqi first entered this place. Although it happened 100 years ago, it felt like yesterday. "Zimo, don't worry. Nianqi is very smart. She'll be fine." Extreme Fire consoled from the side. Night Spirit still transformed into a black-robed young man and followed behind Su Zimo in silence. "What about the treasures here?" The three of them arrived at the secret chamber in the exquisite secret realm and looked at the many treasures left behind by Fairy Ling Long. Extreme Fire asked with a frown. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and said, "Let's leave them here. These treasures are the hope that Fairy Ling Long left behind for the human race." However, the human race won the ancient war. But now Tianhuang mainland is in chaos, and the situation that the human race is facing is even more dangerous than in the ancient era. There are internal and external troubles. This might be the final path of retreat for the human race. Extreme Fire nodded. The two of them arrived before the wall where Fairy Ling Long left her words, and bowed once more before turning to leave the secret realm. Compared to 100 years ago, Su Zimo and the other two were much stronger. The three of them left the exquisite secret realm and entered the periphery of Kunlun Ruins. Along the way, almost no malevolent ghosts or phantoms dared to approach and avoided them. The three of them traveled and returned to Tianhuang mainland in less than half a day. Su Zimo looked in the direction of the middle continent and murmured softly, "Convention of the myriad races. Here I come." Middle continent, Heaven Evolution Mountain Range. The mountain range was filled with fog all year round. However, during this period of time, it seemed like someone was controlling it, and all the fog dispersed. Enigma Palace. Since ancient times, the most mysterious and powerful existence in the cultivation world, the holy land of the human race. Since the ancient era, the world had changed and many super sects had risen and been destroyed. The cycle of reincarnation continued, and Enigma Palace was the only one that remained standing. None of the flames of war spread to the Enigma Palace's territory. Furthermore, Enigma Palace was the most mysterious existence in the cultivation world. No one knew what it was like inside the Enigma Palace. Apart from the cultivators of Enigma Palace, almost no one else could enter Enigma Palace to take a look. But now, Enigma Palace was hosting the convention of the myriad races, and completely unraveled the mysterious veil of Enigma Palace. Over the past few days, countless sects, factions, cultivators, and races had arrived at the Enigma Palace. The convention of the myriad races was a place where all rivers flowed into the sea. It didn't matter if you were from a large sect or a small sect, an itinerant cultivator or an aristocratic family, or even the Python tribe, the Snake tribe, or any other demonic beast. As long as your cultivation was high enough, you could participate in the convention of a myriad tribes. Over the past few days, countless sects, factions, and powerful living beings had arrived at the Heaven Evolution Mountain Range and entered Enigma Palace. Even some rogue cultivators who were in seclusion showed up. Nobody would miss out on this grand event. Everyone knew that this was not just a convention. There was a high chance that the future of Tianhuang mainland, including the fate of the myriad races, would be decided at this convention. Dao palaces were scattered all over Enigma Palace. Their positions were mysterious and seemed to correspond to the constellations in the firmaments. One after another, spirit peaks stood tall and surrounded by green water. A vast sea of clouds floated around the peaks. Amidst the rumbling, a waterfall could be seen pouring down, creating waves and a rainbow that spanned between two mountain peaks. The lake beneath the waterfall shimmered, and a fat fish would leap up from time to time. Everything was like an immortal realm. There were still a few days before the convention of the myriad races began. However, many cultivators had already arrived at Enigma Palace. There were many races of different appearances, and it was extremely lively. Dong! Right at this moment, the sound of a distant bell suddenly sounded out from Enigma Palace. What kind of big shot is coming? Look over there. Many cultivators and living beings turned to look at the entrance of Enigma Palace. The gigantic bell in Enigma Palace would only ring when important figures arrived. At that time, there would also be people of noble status from Enigma Palace welcoming them. Far away, a group of cultivators arrived on starlight. There were hundreds of them, and the weakest among them was the Dharma Daojun. Among the hundreds of people, there were even some conjoint body mighty figures. Cultivators with sharp eyesight could even sense the auras of half-martial ancestors among them. The person in the lead had a Dao crown on his head, and his robes were engraved with countless constellations that shone with a faint light. It's the sect master of Heavenly Dipper sect. To think that the sect master would be here personally for the convention of the myriad races. You don't know about that, right? For the past few days, the various super sects were all brought over by the patriarch. This convention is way too important. Many cultivators gathered and discussed softly. Many cultivators of Enigma Palace appeared and welcomed them. The person in the lead was the palace master of Enigma Palace, half-martial ancestor Qingzai. Did you see that? 100 years ago, Araki Takashi wreaked havoc in Enigma Palace, and half-martial ancestor Qingzai was punished to reflect on his mistakes in seclusion. I heard that he was only released recently. Speaking of Araki Takashi, it's strange. There's been no news of Araki Takashi all these years. I reckon that there's a high chance that Araki Takashi is dead. Even if he's not dead, he won't dare to appear. The Bloodvine race has issued a kill order for Araki Takashi, and he's being hunted down by the other Primordial 5 races. Unless he has a death wish and dares to appear at this moment. As the convention of the myriad races approached, more sects and factions descended on Enigma Palace. Many of the 108 upper sects were destroyed by the primordial 6 races, and the remaining dozens of upper sects arrived. On the day of the convention of the myriad races, the 8 immortal sects, 7 fiend sects, 5 Buddhist monasteries, 5 heretical doctrines, 4 unorthodox groups and 3 ancient aristocratic families arrived. Gu sect of the 5 heretical doctrines was actually destroyed. However, there were still a few Gu masters who came and represented Gu sect. What made countless cultivators feel regretful was that Clear Wind Temple of the 9 immortal sects and Clear Heart Nunnery of the 6 Buddhist monasteries were completely destroyed without a single cultivator appearing. Many great demons of the 8 demon regions came as well. Some demons transformed into fiend demons and looked no different from humans. However, some demons were in their true forms and were extremely eye-catching in the crowd with torrential demonic qi. Almost all the factions in Tianhuang mainland were gathered for a grand event as such. Even in the ancient era, it was rare. Enigma Palace was the only one with such charisma. Enigma Palace was also the only one with the boldness to summon the myriad races. Enigma Palace was vast, and was more than enough to accommodate the experts of the myriad races. However, on the day of the convention of the myriad races, none of the primordial 9 races appeared. The patriarch and palace lords of the various major sects and factions were expressionless as they waited patiently. They knew that the purpose of this convention of the myriad races was to negotiate with the primordial races. If the primordial races did not participate, the convention of the myriad races would be meaningless. Chapter 1550. After a long wait, the 10,000 races gathered in Enigma Palace. From morning until noon, no primordial races appeared. Dong! Finally, the bell in Enigma Palace sounded. Many cultivators were invigorated. The palace lord of Enigma Palace led his disciples over hurriedly. Not far away, a group of cultivators of different races arrived. However, none of them were primordial races. The palace lord of Enigma Palace was slightly stunned and reacted quickly with cupped fists. So it's Penglai Island. Welcome, please come in. That group of people were cultivators of Penglai Island. The leader was the island lord of Penglai Island. Behind the island lord of Penglai Island followed a gloomy-looking young man with a long saber by his waist and a cold gaze. It was the new young master of Penglai Island. After everyone from Penglai Island arrived, the living beings of the 10,000 races continued to wait. Under normal circumstances, today should be the day of the convention of the 10,000 races. However, no one from the primordial 9 races appeared, and the convention of the 10,000 races could only be postponed. Although no one said it out loud, the living beings of the 10,000 races had a tacit understanding. A few figures stood among a group of demons. One of them was tall and his hands drooped naturally, almost reaching his knees. Occasionally, there would be a flash of blood in his eyes. It was Monkey in human form. Beside Monkey was the dignified Linghu. Beside Longhu was Qing Qing, who had transformed into a beautiful woman with slender legs. On the other side of Monkey was the Golden Lion and Little Fox. Over the years, Monkey and the brothers had roamed Tianhuang mainland. Among the 8 demon regions, they had explored all 5 of them apart from the 3 seas. The 5 brothers had already cultivated to the realm of grand demons. Brother Monkey, do you think Big Brother is still alive? Linghu asked softly. When she heard that, Little Fox pouted and her eyes reddened. Monkey glared at Linghu. What nonsense are you talking about? Big Brother is definitely alive. I reckon that he will definitely appear in such an occasion. Don't scare Little Fox. Qing Qing reached out and pinched Linghu's fats viciously as well. Linghu was in pain and stuck out his tongue at Little Fox, making a face. Only then did Little Fox smile through her tears. Thereafter, she seemed to have thought of something and retracted her smile, sighing gently. The myriad races continued to wait in Enigma Palace. The primordial 9 races did not appear, and none of the myriad races dared to leave early. The patriarch and the palace masters of the human super sects glanced at each other, without saying a word. Their faces were expressionless, but they all seemed to know what was going on. It was clear that the actions of the primordial races were intentional. In the evening, the sky gradually darkened. The crowd became more and more restless. The patience of many cultivators and living beings was gradually running out. The arrogance of this primordial race is too great. That's right. All the races have gathered, and we're just waiting for the primordial 9 races. Complaints could be heard from the crowd. Dong! At this moment the bell rang. In the distant horizon, dark clouds pressed down and surged over, emitting a terrifying aura. When they got closer, the cultivators could see clearly. Their expressions changed slightly, and a trace of fear flashed through their eyes. The rumbling dark clouds were formed by ferocious-looking Rakshasa race beings. Many Rakshasas were pitch black and flapped their gigantic wings. All of them were incomparably ugly and had ferocious gazes as they circled in midair. From afar they looked like a gigantic dark cloud. When the dark cloud arrived above Enigma Palace, the Rakshasas dispersed one after another. A beautiful and slender figure walked out from the dark clouds. Among the ugly and menacing Rakshasas, a flawlessly beautiful woman strode over slowly. She wore tight armor that accentuated her curvaceous figure perfectly. The appearance of this beautiful woman attracted a wave of exclamations. It was as though a warm ray of sunlight shone through the dark clouds and shone into everyone's hearts. Is that the legendary Wuxia? The Rakshasa race is truly strange. The other Rakshasas are so ugly, but the women of the Rakshasa race are so beautiful. A series of praises sounded from the crowd. Suddenly, a Rakshasa behind Wuxia had a cold expression and revealed killing intent as he charged into the crowd in a flash. That group of people was sliced into 2 by the wings of the Rakshasa race being. Blood spewed out. Instantly, more than 10 cultivators were dismembered by a single move. The 10,000 races were in an uproar. Nobody expected that one of the primordial 9 races, the Rakshasa race, would go on a killing spree the moment they appeared and kill more than 10 cultivators. The nearby cultivators were shocked and retreated one after another. The Rakshasa race being said coldly, "Human ants, you deserve to die for insulting my race." Many cultivators remained silent. Even if some cultivators were enraged, they did not dare to make a sound. Just now there were only 3 or 4 cultivators who were being discussed. However, the moment the Rakshasa race being attacked, more than 10 cultivators were killed. In the eyes of the Rakshasa race, they truly did not take human cultivators seriously. Killing more than 10 cultivators was as easy as crushing a few ants. The palace lord of Enigma Palace swept his gaze, and his expression darkened. However, he went forward and cupped his fists. "Welcome, fellow Taoists of the Rakshasa race. Please enter." Wuxia walked in with a cold expression. Hundreds of ferocious-looking Rakshasa race beings followed behind Wuxia. All of a sudden, a Rakshasa race being attacked once more and charged towards the direction of Overlord Palace of the Fiend sections. Wielding 2 curved sabers in his hands, he killed 2 Overlord Palace cultivators on the spot. The 2 Overlord Palace cultivators were completely unprepared, and their eyes were widened in confusion, even in death. The Overlord Palace Lord gripped his fists tightly and took a deep breath of air, asking in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist Rakshasa, what's the meaning of your actions?" "Hee," the Rakshasa race being sneered. "Just now, I heard the 2 of them complaining that we were late. How dare they complain about the Rakshasa race? They have to die too." Hee. Many Rakshasa race beings grinned and bared their scarlet fangs, looking like malevolent ghosts from hell that were terrifying. "Why? Do you have an opinion?" The Rakshasa race being glared at the Overlord Palace Lord with a dark gaze and raised his brow. The Overlord Palace Lord grit his teeth and lowered his head under the gaze of the Rakshasa race being, saying softly, "No. Very good." The Rakshasa race being turned and left with a satisfied expression. From then on, all the races went silent. None of them dared to make a single sound. Nobody wanted to provoke the Rakshasa race and attract killing intent for no reason. All of a sudden, a Rakshasa race being turned around and looked at another group of people with killing intent. The cultivators standing there were none other than the people from Misty Peak. Their leader was the old immortal crane of Misty Peak. Everyone from Misty Peak felt a chill run down their spines. They did not say anything at all, and merely stared at Yu Luosha for a moment, because she seemed familiar. They did not know why they would attract killing intent. Chapter 1551. Tisk Tsk. Glaring at the group from Misty Peak, the Rakshasa walked over slowly with a sinister smile and a ferocious gaze that sent chills down one's spine. Swoosh! The various sects and forces surrounding Ethereal Peak dispersed one after another, fearing that they would be implicated if they could not avoid it. In the blink of an eye, a large empty space was revealed around Misty Peak. There were only a dozen people from Misty Peak. Among them, the highest cultivation realm was only at the conjoint body realm. The Rakshasa could kill everyone from Misty Peak with a single move. Many sects and factions were indifferent. None of them were willing to provoke the Rakshasa race and incur their wrath because of unrelated people. Just now, even the Overlord Palace Master tolerated the death of a disciple of Overlord Palace. There were too many sects and factions like Misty Peak in Tianhuang mainland who would stand up for them. To many cultivators, the group from Misty Peak was already dead. However, Misty Peak was extraordinary. Although it was not big, and its foundation was far inferior to the super sects, the Rakshasa race's arrival at Misty Peak caused quite a stir. Someone from each region stood out at the same time. Some of them were humans, and some were fiend demons. 2 cultivators from Elixir Yang sect, one of the 4 unorthodox groups, stood out immediately. They were Su Xiaoning and Ji Qingtian. On the other side, a woman with a cold expression like an ice mountain stood up slowly. It was the young master of Chiguraman, Thousand Crane Fairy Lung Ro. Su Xiaoning knew about the relationship between Su Zimo and Misty Peak, and naturally would not stand by idly. As for Ji Qingtian and Lung Ro, they were cultivators from Misty Peak. Even though the 2 of them had joined the 4 unorthodox groups, they had never forgotten the kindness of Misty Peak. Tomb sect. Little Fatty stood up with a grim expression as well. Damned Fatty, you were so afraid of death in the past. Why aren't you afraid now? Shijian muttered and stood up as well. There are some things that I can avoid. It was rare for Little Fatty to be so serious as he said in a deep voice. But they can't touch Misty Peak. In the Dipankara Temple of Buddhism, a young monk put his palms together and held a green lamp in his hand. He softly chanted the name of Buddha and walked out of the crowd. A young girl in a pink dress from the Pure Maiden sect of the Fiend sect smiled gently and stood out. In this world, there were some people who didn't care about good or evil, immortals or devils or cultivation. In their hearts, friendship was more important than life and death. Monkey Linghu, Qing Qing, the Golden Lion, and the Little Fox walked out from the demon race's area. Perhaps it had nothing to do with race. Noticing that, the Rakshasa narrowed his eyes and revealed a ferocious expression as he snickered menacingly. Why? Did I blow up an ant's nest just because I wanted to kill a few ants? You ants have stepped out. Are you not convinced and rushing out to die? The Rakshasa surveyed his surroundings with a ferocious gaze and a murderous aura. The old immortal crane of Misty Peak took a deep breath of air and said in a deep voice, Rakshasa, may I ask if I, Misty Peak, just now, have I offended you in any way? The Rakshasa smirked. You guys have stared at the young master of the Rakshasa race for too long. Therefore, all of you have to die. Our young master is pure as ice, and is not someone that can be tainted by the gazes of ants like you. When these words were spoken, it immediately caused an uproar. The Rakshasa race was way too domineering. Everyone could accept that private discussions were not allowed. Right now, they would lose their lives if they even took a second look at Yu Luosha. The cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat and lowered their heads hurriedly, avoiding their gazes. They did not dare to look at Yu Luosha anymore, afraid that they would be targeted by the Rakshasa race. Su Xiaoning frowned. You want to kill someone just because you took a second look? How is that reasonable in this world? Fufu. Linghu stifled a laugh. How interesting. My eyes are on my body, and I can look wherever I want. It's none of your business. The Rakshasa race being's gaze swept through the crowd and landed on Linghu as he barked coldly. You have a death wish. Swash. The Rakshasa race being spread his wings and transformed into a streak of dark light, vanishing instantly. The next moment, he was already above Ling Hu's head. Descending from the skies, his sharp wings slashed towards Ling Hu's head. It was way too fast. Many cultivators could not react in time. However, Ling Hu was prepared. Electric arcs shone on his body as he roared, and reverted to his true form instantly. Waving his tiger claws, he clashed against the Rakshasa race being's wings. Clang! 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 Sparks flew everywhere. In the blink of an eye, Ling Hu defended against more than 10 killing moves of the Rakshasa race being. However, Ling Hu's body was massive, and he was far inferior to the Rakshasa race in terms of speed and agility. As such, he was flustered by the series of attacks. Scram! Right then, a roar sounded from the battlefield as an incomparably thick golden rod suddenly descended and smashed towards the Rakshasa race being. The Rakshasa race being wanted to dodge, but realized that no matter how he dodged, he could not break free from the range of the golden rod. Clang! The Rakshasa race being summoned his curved saber hurriedly and blocked in front of him. The curved saber collided against the golden rod. The golden rod burst forth with an extremely terrifying power and struck the Rakshasa race being's chest with ease, sending him flying. The crowd was in an uproar. Nobody expected this seemingly insignificant monkey to be so domineering as to attack the Rakshasa race being. More than that, nobody expected this monkey to send a conjoint body Rakshasa race being flying with a single strike. Ling Hu chuckled. Brother Monkey, you're still the best. Boom. Monkey's expression was cold and his eyes shone with a scarlet glint. He looked at the Rakshasa race being not far away and slammed imminent heavily on the ground. The limestone on the ground exploded instantly. Monkey's demonic chi was torrential, and he suppressed the Rakshasa race being completely in terms of aura. Bang! The Rakshasa race being fell to the ground but got up quickly. His expression was grim, and a few bones in his chest were broken. This bit of injury was nothing serious for a conjoint body mighty figure. However, the Rakshasa race being felt humiliated. This was the convention of the 10,000 races, and countless eyes were watching. To think that he would be beaten up by a monkey. Hee. Myriad Nether, your combat strength has regressed. How embarrassing. The other Rakshasa race beings laughed when they saw that. The myriad Nether Rakshasa's face alternated between shades of green and white, and the killing intent in his eyes intensified as he said coldly, "Don't just stand there and watch the show. Kashi, come out and help me." "Sure." The Rakshasa named Kashi grinned and flew out a long time ago, unable to hold it in any longer. He stuck out his scarlet tongue and licked his lips. The myriad Nether Rakshasa clutched his chest and said as he recovered from his injuries, "I'll leave that monkey to you." "No problem." Kashi Rakshasa's eyes were filled with excitement. The myriad Nether Rakshasa shifted his gaze and glared at Misty Peak once more, saying coldly, "Just now, those ants are staring at our young master. I'll kill them first." Chapter 1552. That's enough. A cold voice sounded from the front. Yu Luosha noticed the commotion and frowned, hollering, "Young master, it's truly rude of those ants to stare at you," the Rakshasa myriad underworld said. "Don't worry, young master. I'll kill those ants for you, and won't let their blood dirty your hands." Yu Luosha frowned slightly, and his expression darkened as he waved his hand impatiently. "It's just a glance. It's nothing. There's no need to pursue this matter." "That won't do, young master. You don't have to be so magnanimous towards these ants. Even if they can be spared from death, they can't escape punishment." The Rakshasa myriad underworld did not realize anything and said with a fawning expression, "I'll go dig out their eyeballs as punishment." Over the years, the Rakshasa race had slaughtered wantonly in Tianhuang mainland without much obstruction. The bloodthirsty nature of the Rakshasa race was completely unleashed. With that said, the Rakshasa myriad underworld's figure flashed and lunged towards the group from Misty Peak. The expressions of Su Xiaoning, Ji Qingtian, Lung Ro and the others changed, and they were about to stop him. Swoosh! An even faster figure descended, arriving above the myriad abyss Rakshasa in the blink of an eye. The figure reached out with his fair palm and gripped the Rakshasa myriad underworld by the neck, throwing him to the ground fiercely. Bang! The Rakshasa myriad underworld was smashed into the ground, and his tendons and bones were ruptured. He grimaced in pain, and sweat broke out on his forehead. Just as he was about to curse, he swallowed his words when he caught sight of the figure before him, and almost bit his tongue. The person who threw him to the ground was the young master of the Rakshasa race, Wuxia. That scene stunned the living beings of the 10,000 races as well. Only some cultivators from Misty Peak were in deep thought. Oh my! Linghu did not mind the commotion and laughed cheekily. What's going on? You guys started fighting amongst yourselves? Young master, why are you? The Rakshasa myriad underworld felt wronged and was confused. Wuxia said slowly with a cold expression. I said earlier on. There's no need to pursue this matter. Didn't you hear me? I just. The Rakshasa of the Abyss still wanted to defend herself. Shut up. Wuxia stepped forward and stomped on the myriad Abyss Rakshasa's face. The Rakshasa of the Abyss blacked out on the spot. Crack. The sound of bones cracking could be heard. The beings of the myriad races sucked in a sharp breath upon hearing this. This stomp had crushed the myriad Abyss Rakshasa's face. When the beings of the myriad races saw how beautiful Wuxia was, they originally thought that she was a gentle and easy to talk to. Who would have thought that his sudden attack would be so terrifying and vicious, that even his own clansmen would be crippled? Most importantly, all of the beings of the myriad races were completely at a loss. He didn't understand why this beautiful Wuxia would suddenly become angry. Was it simply because the myriad Abyss Rakshasa had disobeyed her orders? Even the Rakshasas were confused, let alone the living beings present. Originally, that Kashi Rakshasa had wanted to deal with the monkey. However, when he saw this scene, he was so frightened that his entire body trembled. Without much hesitation, he retreated. After this incident, many Rakshasas arrived at an area that belonged to the primordial races. Throughout the entire process, there were no more Rakshasas that jumped out to kill. The journey was peaceful. Many cultivators nodded to themselves and had more confidence in the convention of the myriad races. From the looks of it, Wuxia should be here sincerely to negotiate reconciliation with the human race. Misty Peak is truly lucky. If Wuxia hadn't attacked, a huge battle would have broken out. That's right. The other primordial races haven't arrived yet. If a huge battle breaks out, this convention of the myriad races won't be able to continue. Dong! Just as everyone was discussing, the bell of Enigma Palace sounded once more. Far away, a group of cultivators in dark green robes walked over slowly. The group of cultivators looked no different from humans. However, their faces were pale, and deep in their eye sockets were a pair of ghastly green eyes that were extremely frightening. The witch race had arrived at Enigma Palace. The leader of the witch race was thin, and his cheeks were deeply sunken. He looked like a skeleton that could be blown away by a gust of wind. However, when the living beings of the myriad races present saw the witch race, their hearts skipped a beat, and they revealed looks of fear. That's young Master Guiwu, right? It should be him. I heard that 20 years ago, he unleashed a nascent divinity curse and severely injured a human race patriarch. Yes, although that patriarch escaped, he died not long after. That's way too scary. Many cultivators lowered their heads and did not dare to look at the witch race, afraid that a curse would descend. Greetings, young Master Guiwu. Please come in. The Palace Lord of Enigma Palace led many Enigma Palace cultivators forward. Young Master Guiwu was expressionless and did not even look at the Palace Lord of Enigma Palace. Just like that, he led the witch race and walked past the Enigma Palace cultivators without saying anything. This was not a slight. This was a complete and utter disregard. The Palace Lord of Enigma Palace's expression changed slightly. However, after cultivating for the past 100 years, he had already become much more composed. Even though he was insulted as such, he was still indifferent and merely smiled faintly. Ah! Right then, an Enigma Palace cultivator suddenly shrieked and fell to the ground. He struggled and rolled on the ground continuously as a green mist emanated from his body. The cultivator seemed to be in extreme pain as he tore his clothes and scratched his face repeatedly. In a few moves, a large piece of flesh was torn off his face, and he was unrecognizable. When they heard that tragic shriek and saw that scene, the living beings of the myriad races felt chills run down their spines. Junior brother. Another Enigma Palace cultivator wanted to head forward to check on his fellow sect mate. Don't touch him. The palace lord of Enigma Palace's expression changed starkly as he reminded hurriedly. Unfortunately, it was already too late. The palm of the Enigma Palace cultivator at the back touched the cultivator on the ground, and his palm was tainted with green mist as well. In the blink of an eye, the flesh on the Enigma Palace cultivator's palm began to rot and fall off. Ah! The cultivator let out a tragic cry as well. Many Enigma Palace cultivators were alarmed and dispersed. In that short period of time, the Enigma Palace cultivator, who fell to the ground first, was already motionless, and his body had turned into a pool of blood. There was only a corpse left on the spot. A conjoint body mighty figure was dead just like that. The second mighty figure of Enigma Palace did not last long either. In front of everyone, he died in a few breaths and turned into a pool of blood. The people from Enigma Palace were powerless to do anything. They could only watch as this scene unfolded. Su Xiaoning had just closed in and took out an elixir. By the time she wanted to help, it was already too late. The palace lord of Enigma Palace gripped his fists tightly with a furious expression. Turning to look at young Master Gui Wu, he took a deep breath and asked in a deep voice, "May I ask what's the meaning of this, young Master Gui Wu?" Cough cough. Young Master Gui Wu coughed twice and said sickly, "He was too close to me earlier on. I was careless and was killed by him. It was an accidental injury." Two conjoint body mighty figures of Enigma Palace were killed just by the words "too close" and "accidental injury." The palace lord of Enigma Palace was enraged. However, he could only endure it for the sake of the convention of 10,000 races. The cultivators were silent, and their hearts were filled with sorrow. At that moment, they gradually experienced the barbaric, cold-blooded, cruel and heartless era of the primordial era in the legends. Chapter 1553. The Rakshasa, and which race were only two primordial races, and they were already so domineering. Many cultivators were secretly worried. The situation doesn't look too good. The patriarch of Snowdrift Valley was a middle-aged beauty. She looked rather gentle, and murmured with a hint of melancholy, "Amitba." Abbot Huishan of Dapamkara Temple had a worried expression, as well as he chanted a Buddhist proclamation. The primordial races were way too domineering, and there was not much room for negotiation for the human race. The outcome of this convention would not be optimistic either. Dong! The bell of Enigma Palace rang once more. A blood mist drifted over from afar with figures faintly discernible within. Before they arrived above Enigma Palace, there was already a blood stench. Bloodvine race. 100 years ago, the Bloodvine race destroyed one of the upper sects, Southern Dual Sect. In the end, Araki Takashi suppressed more than 10,000 of them on Six-Star Mountain. Even the young master of the Bloodvine race, Tung Lingzi, was killed. That battle caused the Bloodvine race to lose face. However, for the past 100 years, the Bloodvine race had been infamous. Not long ago, they had even destroyed one of the immortal sects, Clear Wind Temple. In that battle, more than 10 Mahayana patriarchs of Clear Wind Temple died. In the end, even emperors appeared. The emperors of Clear Wind Temple were buried on the peak of Clear Wind Mountain, causing a huge uproar in the cultivation world. Compared to the Bloodvine race, the Rakshasa, in which race did not make much of a move in the past few years. Many cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat and instantly turned nervous, afraid that they would be noticed by the Bloodvine race and be killed. The palace lord of Enigma Palace took a deep breath of air and suppressed the anger in his heart. His expression returned to normal as he welcomed them with cupped fists. "Greetings, everyone from the Bloodvine race. Please come in." The current young master of the Bloodvine race was Tung Luo. He was also an extremely famous monster incarnate in the Bloodvine race. However, if Tung Lingzi had not died, Tung Luo would not have had the chance to become the young master of the Bloodvine race. Tung Luo's bloodthirst was even greater than Tung Lingzi's. "How lively!" Tung Lingzi licked his lips and swept his gaze through the crowd, saying excitedly, "There's so much fresh blood food. I can't wait." Hee. The Bloodvine race let out a wave of laughter that caused one's hair to stand on end. The beings of the myriad races felt a chill in their hearts when they heard this. The Bloodvine race had just descended, and did not conceal their thoughts at all. In the eyes of the Bloodvine race, the living beings of the myriad races were merely food. Tung Luo's gaze swept the surroundings. The beings of the myriad races all avoided his gaze, not daring to look him in the eye. Ha 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 ha. Tung Luo had a complacent look on his face as he said with a smile, "Don't worry, I've just eaten a few hundred blood food. I'm not hungry yet." As he spoke, Tung Luo led the group of Bloodvine clan members in. Many cultivators heaved a sigh of relief. Boom! Boom! The bell rang twice in a row. Two groups of cultivators could be seen rushing over from the distant horizon. The cultivators on the left all had blonde hair and blue eyes. They were tall and strong, and the men were handsome while the women were beautiful. They looked like a pair of golden boy and jade girl. The Protoss had arrived. The cultivators on the other side looked no different from humans. However, there was a faint vertical line of blood between the eyebrows of these cultivators, like a closed eye. The Heavenly Eye race had arrived. Two primordial races had arrived at Enigma Palace at the same time. The Palace Master of Enigma Palace appeared once more, and welcomed the two primordial races in. The one leading the Protoss should be the Shaoxiang goddess. Indeed, she's peerless and flawless. She's not inferior to you, Luosha. Many cultivators looked at the woman leading the Protoss, and could not help but praise secretly. That's strange. Legend has it that the Protoss's Shaoxiang goddess and the Imperial Heaven Divine Sun are an immortal couple. They're a match made in heaven, and often appear together. Why is there only the goddess and not the Divine Sun in such a grand occasion? I'm not sure. They must have been delayed by something. Some cultivators communicated with their spirit consciousnesses secretly. Who's the blind man leading the Heavenly Eye race? Right then, the young master of one of the upper sects, Heaven-Shaking Sect, sent a voice transmission and asked secretly. The leader of the Heavenly Eye race had shoulder-length hair, and was expressionless. There were two pitch-black holes where his eyes should be, and he looked a little terrifying. The Patriarch of Heaven-Shaking Sect sent a voice transmission. What blind man? Be careful. That person is not to be trifled with, and is vicious. Don't cause trouble. Patriarch, don't worry. We're communicating with our spirit consciousnesses, and he can't hear us. The young master of Heaven-Shaking Sect said indifferently. There's nothing wrong with being careful. The Patriarch of Heaven-Shaking Sect reminded before explaining. That person is the young master of the Heavenly Eye race, Remnant Eyes. I heard that he crippled his own eyes in order to cultivate his Heavenly Eye when he was young. Ah! The young master of Heaven-Shaking Sect was secretly speechless. The Patriarch of Heaven-Shaking Sect continued. Say, Remnant Eyes is so ruthless to himself. How ruthless is he to others? Now that he's at the half-martial ancestor realm, he can definitely regrow his eyes, right? The young master of Heaven-Shaking Sect asked again. The Patriarch of Heaven-Shaking Sect shook his head. If he regains his eyes, his cultivation will be crippled by more than half. The fact that he named himself Remnant Eyes means that he's determined to never see the light for the rest of his life. That's way too ruthless. The young master of Heaven-Shaking Sect grinned and transmitted his voice. What's the fun in not being able to see for the rest of his life, for the sake of cultivation? At that instant, the young master of the Heavenly Eye race, Remnant Eyes, suddenly came to a stop. Remnant Eyes slowly turned his head. A pair of pitch-black holes were facing the direction of Heaven-Shaking Sect. At that instant, the Patriarch of Heaven-Shaking Sect and the young master of Heaven-Shaking Sect were startled. They felt their scalps tingle, and their hearts seemed to have stopped beating. Didi fellow Taoist Remnant Eyes, what's the matter? The Patriarch of Heaven-Shaking Sect tried his best to remain calm, but his voice was trembling uncontrollably. Remnant Eyes said calmly, I hate hearing others talk about my eyes the most. Besides, you guys just said a word that I'm extremely unwilling to hear blind. The Patriarch of Heaven-Shaking Sect and the young master of Heaven-Shaking Sect turned extremely pale instantly as cold sweat dripped down from their bodies. Remnant Eyes curled his lips with a mocking expression. Do you guys think that I can't hear your divine consciousness voice transmissions? Since he had injured his eyes, he could naturally hear things that others could not. Suddenly, the heavenly eye on Remnant Eye's glabella opened a tiny gap. An extremely terrifying energy fluctuation burst forth, and a gigantic cold beam of light streaked past the direction of heaven-shaking sect. It was too fast. The power of visual techniques was instantaneous. Furthermore, it was the visual technique of the young master of the heavenly eye race, the patriarch of heaven-shaking sect, and the young master widened their eyes, and their expressions froze. Poof, poof, poof. Blood mist spewed out one after another. In the blink of an eye, dozens of cultivators and 3 conjoint body mighty figures of heaven-shaking sect were killed by the visual technique, and their essence spirits were destroyed. On the ground, there was only a pile of minced flesh left with a stench. Remnant Eyes merely opened his eyes slightly, and all the cultivators of heaven-shaking sect were dead. Silence reigned. The living beings of the 10,000 races were stunned by Remnant Eye's methods, and did not even dare to breathe heavily. In the primordial era, there was naturally a reason why the primordial races could dominate Tianhuang mainland and reign above the 10,000 races. Mighty figures of the human race were as insignificant as ants in the hands of the young masters of the primordial races. They could be crushed to death casually without any effort. Chapter 1554. Well done, Brother Remnant Eye. Tung Luo grinned and praised. Remnant Eye nodded gently in Tung Luo's direction as a form of greeting. The palace lord of Enigma Palace glanced at the Protoss and frowned slightly. May I ask, Goddess Xiaoxiang, why isn't the Imperial Sky Divine Child here? What right do you have to ask about the whereabouts of the Divine Child? Goddess Xiaoxiang glanced sideways with an unfriendly expression and asked instead. No, you've misunderstood, Goddess. The palace lord of Enigma Palace explained hurriedly. This is the convention of the myriad races after all, and the Imperial Sky Divine Child is the young master of the Protoss. Don't worry, I can make decisions for everything regarding the Protoss. As for the Imperial Sky, Goddess Xiaoxiang paused for a moment and a hint of pride flashed through her eyes. The Imperial Sky will definitely come. Furthermore, he'll give you guys a surprise. The palace lord of Enigma Palace's heart sank. The surprise that Goddess Xiaoxiang spoke of might be a disaster for the human race. It was not appropriate for the palace lord of Enigma Palace to ask further, and could only force a chuckle. I'm truly looking forward to it then. Xiaoxiang, what's the surprise for Brother Imperial Sky? Tell us. Tung Luo could not help but ask curiously. Goddess Xiaoxiang smiled brightly. You guys will know when the time comes. The Imperial Sky will bring some people that you guys can't imagine. Dong! The bell of Enigma Palace rang once more. Screech! A sharp screech sounded from the distant horizon. A series of bedazzling golden lights surged over with scorching auras. Hundreds of 3-legged golden crows flapped their wings and flew over. The 4 3-legged golden crows in the lead had the strongest auras, and the flames were the strongest. From afar, it was as though 4 blazing suns were flying over. The Golden Crow race had arrived at Enigma Palace. The eyes of the Buddhist monks were filled with grief and indignation as they looked at the 3-legged golden crows that flew over. Clear Heart Nunnery of the 6 Buddhist monasteries was destroyed by the Golden Crow race. Of the 6 Buddhist monasteries, Dipankara Monastery, Diamond Monastery, Formless Monastery, Wisdom Monastery, Hollow Monastery and Clear Heart Nunnery, it was the most peaceful one. Most of the nuns in the Clear Heart Nunnery were not interested in worldly affairs, and were kind to others. Therefore, they rarely got involved in the battles of the cultivation world. Who would have thought that such a super sect would be mercilessly slaughtered by the Golden Crow clan? It was unknown how many nuns from Clear Heart Nunnery had died in that battle. The area within a radius of a few hundred li around Clear Heart Nunnery had been reduced to ruins by the Golden Crows. Countless living beings had perished in this fire, and the number of people in the world was uncountable. Haha! Tung Luo stood up and laughed loudly. I didn't expect the Golden Crow tribe's 4 crown princes to come for this convention of 1,000 tribes. How rare! The Golden Crow clan had a total of 10 sons. Among them, The seventh crown prince had the strongest battle prowess. On Punglai Island, 3 of them were killed by the dragon phoenix true body. Among the 4 crown princes who had come to Enigma Palace, the 7th crown prince was among them. Other than him, there was also the 8th, 9th and 10th princes. Many 3-legged golden crows landed on the square. They transformed into human forms and walked toward the crowd. When he heard Tung Luo's greeting, the 8th crown prince laughed as well. We brothers were curious, so we followed 7th brother over to take a look at what's up with this convention of 1,000 tribes organized by the human race. How lively! The 9th crown prince was a little excited. Fellow Taoists, you're all here. The 10th crown prince was the youngest and looked like a 15 or 16-year-old youth. However, despite his young age, there would be an occasional hint of ruthlessness and ferocity between his brows. Not everyone was qualified to be one of the 10 golden crows. This was a title that could only be obtained after countless killings and bloody battles, stepping on the corpses of many of their own race's bloodline. It was incomparably noble. Although the 10th crown prince was young, his hands were stained with endless blood. Without that ferocity, he would not have been able to become one of the 10 golden crows. The 4 crown princes of the golden crow race were gathered, and they had different personalities. The 7th crown prince's expression was cold and emotionless. He had not said a single word since the beginning. The 8th and 9th crown princes were clearly more excited and extroverted. As for the 10th crown prince, although he did not say anything either, his eyes darted around in deep thoughts, and no one knew what he was thinking. The primordial 6 races were all present. Among the primordial 9 races, only the primordial 6 races had clearly expressed that they would participate in the convention of the myriad races. There was no news from the dragons, barbarians and Kuan race. In other words, the convention of the myriad races could begin. The palace lord of Enigma Palace took a deep breath of air and stood out, declaring, "Fellow Taoists of the myriad races, thank you for giving Enigma Palace face and participating in this grand meet. I hereby announce that the convention of the myriad races is officially..." Hold on. Before the palace lord of Enigma Palace could finish, he was interrupted by a voice. The 8th crown prince of the golden crow race stood out and glanced sideways at the palace lord of Enigma Palace with a disdainful expression. "Who are you, old man? Why are you presiding over the convention of the myriad races?" The palace lord of Enigma Palace's expression was unchanged as he said in a deep voice, "I'm the palace lord of Enigma Palace, and my Dao title is Qingzai. The convention of the myriad races this time round was initiated by Enigma Palace and held in Enigma Palace. Naturally, I should be the one presiding over it. 8th crown prince, do you have any objections?" "Objections?" The 8th crown prince shrugged. "Of course. Get lost with me, you're an eyesore. Ha 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 ha." Many golden crows burst into laughter. The Rakshasa race and Bloodvine race's crowd cheered as well. The palace lord of Enigma Palace grit his teeth and suppressed the anger in his heart, saying in a deep voice, "7th crown prince, is this the intention of the golden crow race?" "8th brother's words are my words," the 7th crown prince said indifferently. Tung Luo raised his brows slightly as well and licked his lips. "I'm curious as well. What right does an ant like you have to preside over the convention of the myriad races?" "Only us primordial races are qualified to preside over such a grand meet." Goddess Xiaoxiang nodded and said in a deep voice. The palace lord of Enigma Palace stood on the spot with a terrible expression, neither advancing nor retreating. The convention of the myriad races had yet to begin, and the primordial 6 races were already so overbearing and had the initiative. If the convention of the myriad races was handed over to the primordial 6 races, there would be no chance of peace talks. "Why? Are you indignant?" When the 8th crown prince saw that the palace lord of Enigma Palace did not retreat, he could not help but raise his brow with killing intent. A commotion broke out in the crowd as well. The patriarch of some super sects frowned with worried expressions. "Why? Even you ants are indignant?" The 8th crown prince surveyed his surroundings and said slowly without concealing the killing intent in his heart. Right then, the 7th crown prince spoke slowly. "Don't say that the golden crow race isn't sincere and isn't giving you humans a chance. It's fine if you want to preside over this convention of the myriad races. If any of you humans can step forward and defeat the Golden Crow race, we can let the humans preside over it. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a joke if any Tom, Dick or Harry wants to preside over the convention of the myriad races? Chapter 1555. The Palace Lord of Enigma Palace had a terrible expression. It was clear that the seventh prince was referring to him by nobody. Furthermore, he did not hide it at all. Tung Luo nodded. That's a good idea. If that person can't convince the masses, don't come out to preside over the convention of 10,000 races. It's embarrassing. Seventh brother, just now you're wrong, the eighth prince said with a smile. Oh. The seventh prince glanced sideways. The eighth prince said, it's not about who can step forward to challenge the Golden Crow race, but who dares to. The ninth prince surveyed his surroundings as well and shouted, that's right. The Golden Crow race will give you humans a fair chance. Who dares to step forward? Nobody replied. Even the patriarch of the super sects knew that they would definitely lose against the primordial races of the same cultivation realm. Old 8, Old 9, you're all half-martial ancestors. Come back and sit down. It's too much of a bully for you guys to attack. Let the clansmen behind you play. The seventh prince spoke. The eighth and ninth princes sat back down and crossed their arms, ready to watch the show. A golden crow appeared in a flash and surveyed his surroundings with a smile. I'm Jinyu. Who dares to come and play with me? There was a commotion in the crowd, but no one stood out. Ji Qingtian and the others had that intention. However, they had just entered the conjoint body realm and had no chance of winning if they went up now. Jinyu burst into laughter with a mocking expression. I'm only at the conjoint body realm. Half-martial ancestors of the human race can challenge me as well. I won't reject anyone. Why? Is there still no one? Ha 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 ha. Jinyu roared in laughter. You humans only have that bit of guts. And you want to preside over the convention of 10,000 races and negotiate peace with the primordial 6 races? I'll do it. Right then, a monk could not hold it in and stood out, attracting countless gazes. Ah, it's the abbot of Diamond Monastery, Monk Kong Fa. To think that the abbot of Diamond Monastery would have such an explosive temper. Sai Clear Heart Nunnery was destroyed. It's not only Diamond Monastery. All the monks of the Buddhist monasteries are probably furious. Oh, Jinyu's gaze landed on Monk Kong Fa and nodded. Very well. You have some guts, bald monk. I wonder what your methods are. Today I'll show you. Monk Kong Fa's cultivation was already at the half-martial ancestor realm. The moment he entered the battlefield, he summoned his destiny dermic weapon, the Vajra scepter. There should be no place to live, but the heart should be born. Monk Kong Fa chanted the Buddhist scriptures, and his body was instantly filled with a dazzling golden light. His heart was thumping in his chest, heavy and powerful. Crash! Monk Kong Fa's bloodline had already been cultivated to the tsunami blood realm. Although Monk Kong Fa was a half-martial ancestor, he did not dare to be careless. He immediately took out many trump cards and rushed towards Jinyu. Hee hee! Jinyu had a mocking look on his face as he laughed coldly. His figure flickered and disappeared in an instant. Monk Kong Fa's attack missed its target. Too slow. Right at that moment, Monk Kong Fa heard Jinyu's mocking voice. Monk Kong Fa was shocked. Without even turning his head, he swung his Vajra scepter and smashed it behind him. His attack missed again. Jinyu had already left. Among the primordial 9 races, the movement techniques of the Golden Crow race were only slightly inferior to the Rakshasa race. Diamond Monastery focused on body tempering and was completely countered by the Golden Crow race in terms of movement techniques. Shing! A gigantic wound appeared on Monk Kong Fa's back. His flesh was ripped apart, and his bones could be seen as fresh blood spewed out instantly. Watch out, abbot! Many monks of Diamond Monastery exclaimed. Monk Kong Fa widened his eyes and focused his mind, wanting to capture Jinyu's whereabouts. However, in his eyes, Jinyu's figure was merely a faint golden light that he could not capture at all. Shing! Before long, another wound appeared on Monk Kong Fa's body. Monk Kong Fa gritted his teeth and didn't say a word. He continued to fight. He believed that as long as his Vajra scepter struck Jin Yu once, he would definitely be able to severely injure the latter. Unfortunately, he could not even touch Jin Yu's sleeves. Sigh. The abbot of Dapamkara Monastery, Monk Huishen, sighed gently. Before long, Monk Kong Fa was covered in wounds, and the golden barrier on his body dimmed, as well as his blood chi gradually declined. Admit defeat. We admit defeat. The titular disciple of Diamond Monastery stood out and shouted. Monk Kong Fa panted as well. I can't defeat you. You've won. Win. As he said that, he wanted to retreat into the crowd of Diamond Monastery. You still want to leave? Jin Yu's cold voice reverberated around Monk Kong Fa, drifting from left to right. Monk Kong Fa's blood chi was severely depleted, and his reaction and defense were greatly reduced. All of a suddenly, Jin Yu's figure appeared behind Monk Kong Fa. He extended his palm and extended his sharp fingernails, stabbing them into the top of Monk Kong Fa's head. Monk Kong Fa paused and his gaze dimmed. His life force decreased sharply, and his essence spirit was already pierced by Jin Yu's fingernails. Monk Kong Fa was dead. Abbot! The monks of Diamond Monastery cried out tragically and charged forward one after another. Why? Do you want to die together? Jin Yu's gaze intensified and his figure flashed, transforming into a golden beam of light that streaked through the crowd. Poof! 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 Bloodlight surged. In the blink of an eye, the 3 monks of Diamond Monastery at the front were dead on the spot. The remaining monks of Diamond Monastery were so scared that their faces turned pale, as they stopped hurriedly, not daring to advance. The titular disciple of Diamond Monastery said in a deep voice, Jin Yu, we only want to retrieve the abbot's corpse. We have no intention of offending you. Corpse? Jin Yu smiled gently. There's no corpse. With that said, a golden flame burst forth from his fingertip and landed on Monk Kong Fa's body. With a whoosh, a raging fire burst forth. Everyone from Diamond Monastery was stunned. Amitba. When they saw that, countless Buddhist monks chanted Buddhist proclamations with sorrowful expressions. In the blink of an eye, Monk Kong Fa was burned to ashes without a corpse. Even his corpse was not left for him. Ugh. Dapamkara Monastery. Abbot Huishen sighed and stood up slowly. Right then, a palm appeared on Abbot Huishen's shoulder. Abbot, let me do it. A young monk wielded a green lamp and said softly with a firm tone. Ming Zhen Yu. Abbot Huishen was hesitant. Ming Zhen was at the late-stage conjoint body realm. However, Jin Yu was at the perfected conjoint body realm. Everyone knew that they might not be able to win against experts of the primordial races, even if their cultivation realms were suppressed. Furthermore, their cultivation realms were lower than the experts of the primordial races. Monk Kong Fa was the abbot of Diamond Monastery, and was a half-martial ancestor expert. However, he was killed by Jin Yu, who was at the conjoint body realm within dozens of breaths. Ming Zhen's cultivation realm was a minor cultivation realm lower than Jin Yu. There was almost no chance of winning. Chapter 1556. Why? No one dares to challenge me. Jin Yu sneered and surveyed his surroundings, mocking. That's all you humans have. You can't even defeat me, and you want to preside over the convention? Exclamation point. Jin Yu spat with a disdainful expression. It was as though his saliva was spat on the faces of all the cultivators. The patriarch of the super sects fell silent. There were indeed some half-martial ancestor paragons in the immortal, fiend and Buddhist sects of this generation. If those monster incarnates stood out, they might not be able to defeat Jin Yu. However, all the cultivators knew that behind Jin Yu were the 4 princes, the entire Golden Crow race, and even the primordial 6 races. Right now, Jin Yu was the one challenging the human race. However, the other experts of the primordial 6 races, young Master Gui Wu, Goddess Xiao Xiang, and the other monster incarnates of the primordial races were watching from the side. Not many people could withstand that pressure. More importantly, if they fought Jin Yu, it would not be a spar. It would be a life and death battle. It seemed fair on the surface, but it was not. That was because while the primordial six races dared to kill without restraint, the human paragons present did not have the guts. Whoever dared to kill Jin Yu would have to endure the wrath of the Golden Crow race. At that time, there was a high chance that the entire sect would be implicated. Suddenly, the island master of Penglai Island said, "Since that's the case, it's only right for the young masters of the primordial six races to preside over the convention." Penglai Island agrees with this suggestion. Many cultivators were shocked when they heard that. If the primordial six races were to preside over the convention, it would mean that the human race would lose their final advantage and initiative. They would not even have a bargaining chip for peace talks. Many patriarch frowned and looked at the island master of Penglai Island in disbelief. The palace master of Enigma Palace had a grim expression as he said in a deep voice, "Tianchi, there are some suggestions that you should be cautious about." "I agree as well." Suddenly, the sect master of Heavenly Dipper sect said, "Since Enigma Palace doesn't have the qualifications, it's only normal for the primordial six races to preside over it." The sect master of Malevolent Earth sect nodded as well. This is the convention of the primordial 10,000 races to begin with. It doesn't make any difference who preside over it. The primordial six races once ruled Tianhuang mainland. They do have the qualifications. My corpse refinement cult agrees. Poison sect, Dongfang family and Shiman family agree. In the blink of an eye, many super sects stood out to support the primordial six races. There was a commotion in the crowd. Snowdrift Valley's patriarch, Purple Firmament sect's patriarch, Dipamkara Monastery's abbot, and the other patriarchs were alarmed. They knew very well what this meant. There was a high chance that the super sects that stood out had already joined forces with the primordial six races, or even submitted to them. Humph. Linghu curled his lips. These cowards are as timid as mice. They've already surrendered before the fight even started. We also agree. Right then, a conjoint body realm spider spirit raised his voice. This spider demon came from one of the 8 great demon regions, the Thousand Spiders Dune. The East Sea monster region agrees. A great demon from the East Sea stood out. Myriad Demon Valley agrees. Peacock Ridge agrees. In the blink of an eye, half of the 8 demon regions stood out and agreed to let the primordial six races host the convention of the myriad races. Ha 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 ha. The Golden Crow 8th Prince reared his head in laughter. So, the return of the primordial six races to Tianhuang mainland is the wish of all the races. Since all the living beings of the myriad races agree, it would be impolite for us to refuse. I disagree. Right then, an untimely voice sounded. It was extremely ear-piercing to the experts of the primordial six races. A young monk walked out slowly. Another bald monk is here to die? Before the 4 princes could say anything, Jin Yu's expression darkened as he glared at the young monk with a murderous aura, ready to attack at any moment. Who is this little monk? Is he here to die with a late-stage conjoint body cultivation? Ming Zhen of Dipamkara Monastery possesses the legacies of Fahua Monastery and Daming Monastery. He even obtained the legacy of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva in the Tao Inheritance Ground, and was once the titular disciple of Dipamkara Monastery. He should have some capabilities. It's useless even if he has some capabilities. His cultivation realm is even lower than the Golden Crow race. He's simply courting death. I heard that monk Mingzhen has a good relationship with Araki Takashi. Sigh. Speaking of which, if Araki Takashi was still around, he would definitely be able to fight against the experts of the primordial six races, given his combat strength. Many cultivators had conflicted expressions at the mention of Araki Takashi's name. Ever since Araki Takashi's rise, he had been targeted by the various super sects, and was even killed jointly. However, many sects had to admit a fact. Araki Takashi was the strongest monster incarnate of the human race in this era. Late-stage conjoint body realm? On the battlefield, Jin Yu looked at Ming Zhen and suddenly sneered. Seems like there's really no one left in the human race. To think that a late-stage conjoint body would come here to die. Why, bald monk, you want to challenge someone of a higher cultivation realm? Ba. Ming Zhen held the green lamp in his left hand and shook his head gently. I merely want an explanation for Senior Kong Fa. and the countless fellow Taoists of Clear Heart Nunnery who died. All right, I'll send you to hell to meet them right now. Jin Yu's eyes shone brightly as he vanished from the spot in a flash. In the blink of an eye, Jin Yu had already arrived behind Ming Zhen. Reaching out, he extended his sharp fingernails and swiped towards Ming Zhen's head. His movement technique was way too fast. Most of the cultivators present could not catch sight of Jin Yu at all. All they could see was a streak of golden light flashing in their eyes. Ming Zhen stood on the spot motionlessly with his head lowered, as though he could not react at all. It's over. That little monk is already a dead man. Just now that's how Monk Kong Fa died. Jin Yu is still in human form. If he reverts to his true form, his speed and strength will increase exponentially, and his combat strength will reach an unimaginable level. Amidst everyone's discussions, Ming Zhen did not turn back nor did he move. He merely raised the green lamp in his hands and raised it above his head. A flame the size of a pinky burned on the green lamp, as though it could be extinguished with a casual pinch. However, when Jin Yu's palm landed on the flame, he shuddered and retracted his palm, as though he was agitated. Groar! Jin Yu shrieked tragically and retreated with a pained expression. The living beings of the 10,000 races looked over with shocked expressions. A huge hole was burned in Jin Yu's palm. However, there was not a single drop of blood, and the flesh around it was charred. This scene was completely beyond the expectations of the living beings of the 10,000 races. Jin Yu was defeated? What dermic weapon is that? It's so powerful. That seems to be the destiny dermic treasure of the founder master of Dapamkara Monastery, the Universal Light Buddha Emperor. That's not a dermic weapon. It should be an emperor weapon. It's that green lamp. That's right. I heard that in the ancient war, that green lamp was shattered by the emperors of the primordial races, and fell from the level of an emperor weapon to an ordinary dermic weapon. To think that this dermic weapon was passed down to Ming Zhen. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 1557. Bald Monk. Jin Yu was enraged. All these years, the Golden Crow race reigned supreme in Tianhuang mainland, and was almost invincible. He had never suffered such an injury before. Under normal circumstances, given the regeneration capabilities of the Golden Crow race, they should be able to recover quickly with their blood qi. However, the flames on the green lamp contained an extremely terrifying might. The moment Jin Yu's blood qi surged over, it would be incinerated and turned into nothingness. You've angered me. Jin Yu's expression was cold and his eyes surged with rage. He reared his head and roared as his blood qi surged, and his body expanded. In the blink of an eye, he reverted to his true form. A gigantic three-legged golden crow had descended on the battlefield. The three-legged golden crow spread its wings that were dozens of feet long. Its body burned with blazing flames, and every single feather shone with a golden light. It was clear that one of the 3 legs below its abdomen was incomplete. It was the claw that was burned by the green lamp. Are you trying to play with fire? Jin Yu's voice sounded. Today, I'll let you have a taste of the destiny flame of the Golden Crow race. Jin Yu opened his mouth and spat out a scorching flame. Golden light flashed, and the temperature of the entire battlefield rose. That's the Sun Essence flame. Legend has it that the Sun Essence flame of the Golden Crow race can even transform into a blazing sun when cultivated to its limits. The living beings of the 10,000 races exclaimed. Ming Zhen's expression was unchanged as he held the green lamp in his hand and chanted Sanskrit. His glabella shone, and a stream of dermic power shot out from his fingertip into the green lamp. Swoosh! The flame on the green lamp suddenly swelled up crazily. The flame was so bright that it collided with the refined sun flame. The green and golden flames collided and devoured one another without giving way, resulting in a stalemate. This Ming Zhen is not simple. Although the green lamp was once an emperor weapon, he won't be able to release such power if his comprehension of Buddhism is insufficient. That's right. There are way too few people who can suppress the Golden Crow race in terms of flames. Among the 9 races, only the Illumination Dragon lineage of the dragons can compete with the Golden Crow race in terms of the Tao of Fire. Jinyu activated his primordial spirit in a frenzy as flames danced in his eyes. Many golden crows, for princes and experts of the primordial 6 races were watching. He must not lose in front of everyone. Suddenly, 2 balls of golden flames flew out of Jinyu's eyes with an extremely terrifying aura. Eye technique, Eye of Flowing Fire. Ming Zhen looked at the 2 balls of flames flying over, and suddenly blinked. He lowered his eyebrows slightly, and an extremely vast benevolent force emanated from him. The 2 balls of flames were extinguished the moment they arrived before Ming Zhen. A bodhisattva's lowered eyebrows could dispel thousands of ocular techniques. Ming Zhen's mighty power surged into the green lamp, and the green flames burned brightly. Instantly, it devoured Jinyu's sacred sun fire, and surged towards Jinyu. Jinyu's expression changed. He quickly spread his wings, and prepared to escape the range of the green flames. At this moment, Ming Zhen's voice was heard. Great Wish Seal. Ming Zhen extended his palm and formed a seal. Then, he slowly pressed it down in the direction of Jinyu. The speed at which the seal descended was very, very slow. However, Jinyu felt as if his entire body was being restrained by an extremely powerful force. He could not move at all. It was as if there was a huge mountain pressing down on him. The Great Wish Seal contained the power of will of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. As long as hell was not empty, one would not attain Buddhahood. Only by purifying all living beings would one attain Bodhi. Such a vast power of will could even suppress hell, let alone a 3-legged golden crow. Against the Great Wish Seal, the speed of the 3-legged golden crow was completely useless. As though he was frozen in midair, Jinyu could only watch helplessly as the green flames surged over and devoured him. Ah! Jinyu shrieked tragically in the flames. The 10,000 races were shocked. Many cultivators were invigorated as well. This battle was actually won by Ming Zhen. Furthermore, he defeated the Golden Crow race with a lower cultivation realm. Ming Zhen's expression was unchanged when he heard Jinyu's tragic cries in the flames, and he had no intention of stopping. However, Abbot Hui Shun of Dapamkara Monastery had a look of worry in his eyes. Enough! Suddenly, the 8th prince said coldly. Ming Zhen was unmoved. You must have a death wish. Suddenly, the 8th prince's figure vanished from the spot. The moment he said that, he had already arrived before Ming Zhen, and reached out to grab him. Before his palm descended, it had already transformed into the sharp claws of the Golden Crow race. Ah! A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. As a half-martial ancestor, the 8th prince had attacked. This was no longer a difference of a minor cultivation realm. This was a suppression of cultivation realms. Ming Zhen was extremely calm, and his blood chi surged. Instantly, he reached the tsunami blood realm, and punched the 8th prince's palm heavily in reverse. Bang! Ming Zhen shuddered and grunted dully, as he staggered 3 steps back with a pained expression. With every step he took, a deep footprint would appear on the ground. The strength of a half-martial ancestor was way too terrifying. Furthermore, this was one of the 10 golden crows. Indeed, it was as many cultivators had expected. Even if Ming Zhen defeated Jinyu, there would be stronger primordial races that would step forward. However, when a half-martial ancestor of a primordial race appeared, no one of the same cultivation realm could fight against him. Little monk, I'll let you have a taste of my sun essence fire. Suddenly, the 8th prince opened his mouth and spat out a blazing golden flame that surged over. With a grim expression, Ming Zhen could only give up on killing Jinyu and retract his green lamp. He conjured a green flame that burned towards the 8th prince's sun essence fire. This time round, the green flame was devoured by the sun essence fire almost instantly upon collision. One had to know that the refined sun fire contained a shred of divine power. Ming Zhen's green flame could not defend against it at all. Ming Zhen had nowhere to retreat when the sun essence fire enveloped him. Taking a deep breath of air, he suddenly assumed a lotus position on the ground and chanted sutras. Instantly, streams of golden light shone from his body. That was Ksitigarbha's true body. The sun essence fire enveloped Ming Zhen and burned him continuously. Ming Zhen pressed his palms together, and his body was shrouded with golden light. He sat in the flames and channeled his essence spirit to defend with all his might. Fufu! The eighth prince sneered and said coldly, "Let's see how long more you can last." The eighth prince's spirit consciousness was vast, and his dermic powers were boundless, as they surged into the sun essence fire endlessly. The flames intensified, and rose more than 100 feet tall. They burned brighter and surged with endless golden light, engulfing Ming Zhen's figure before long. Just now, the excited crowd calmed down gradually as they looked at the ball of flames. The eyes of many cultivators flickered with sadness. Who else is there in the human race? The eighth prince's aura was torrential as he stood in midair and looked down at the thousands of races. He said coldly, "Anyone who dares to step forward and fight me." Nobody replied. "What a bunch of trash." The eighth prince spat with a disdainful expression and sneered. "The fortune of the human race has run out, and the era of the ancient emperors has passed. The only ones left are cowards like you. You're not fit to be the rulers of Tianhuang mainland." Every single sentence of the eighth prince seemed to be piercing the hearts of many cultivators. Some were indignant, and some were indignant. However, nobody stood out. That was because many cultivators knew that even if they stood out, they would be killed by the eighth prince with ease. They would only be humiliating themselves. There was no way they could defend against him. The human race isn't fit. Neither are you, a feathered beast. A cold voice came from the outside, causing an uproar. End of chapter. Chapter 1558. Feathered Beast. Who in this world would dare to call the Golden Crow race feathered beasts? Were they truly not afraid of death? The voice was hoarse and deep. However, there was an indescribable charm to it, as though it did not care about any living being or race. Who would have the guts to do so? Who would have the guts to do so? All the cultivators turned towards the source of the voice. Not far away, a cultivator walked over slowly. He had a head of white hair and a cold expression. His eyes were pitch black, and he held a saber shrouded in fiend qi in his right hand. "Shura! It's Shura Yen Beichen!" the crowd exclaimed. Under normal circumstances, the titular disciple of Shura's sect was the Shura. However, Yen Beichen had already left Shura's sect a long time ago. However, in this generation, in the hearts of all cultivators in Tianhuang mainland, regardless of who the titular disciple of Shura's sect was, there was only one Shura. He was the only one who was worthy of the title of Shura. The moment many cultivators saw who it was, their eyes flashed with relief. In this world, Shura was probably the only one who had the guts to do so. Shura was the only one who had the guts to do so. Shura was also the only one who dared to say the words feathered beast in front of the Golden Crow race. "Shura?" Eighth Prince's expression darkened as he said coldly, "I don't care who you are. In my eyes, you're already a dead man." Cough cough. Right then, young Master Guiwu coughed gently and stood up slowly, saying slowly, "Shura, I know you. Initially, you were only the titular disciple of Shura's sect. However, something happened and you lost your loved one. By chance, you comprehended the profoundness of the Hatred Sutra, and your combat strength increased tremendously. You transformed completely and became a true Shura. All these years, you've been despised by the immortals, Buddhas and fiends. Even Shura's sect can't tolerate you. I'm curious, why are you here?" "I'm here because I want to kill." Yen Beichen replied indifferently. Young Master Guiwu smiled and said, "The world of cultivation can't tolerate it. These super sects are all your enemies. To be precise, you should be on our side." Tung Luo, Goddess Xiaoxiang, and the others all turned to look at him. Everyone could tell that young Master Guiwu was trying to rope Yen Beichen in. They couldn't help but take a few more glances at Yen Beichen. Ever since the arrival of the primordial 6 races, young Master Guiwu had been watching from the sidelines without saying anything. Now that he stood out and wanted to rope in a human, it was clear that this person was extraordinary. "I'm a person who cherishes talent the most," young Master Guiwu said. "If you are willing to join the sorcerer tribe, I can guarantee that I will treat you as a member of the tribe and give you enough respect." The primordial 6 races were all extremely arrogant and viewed all living beings as ants. Not to mention the young masters of the various primordial races. But now young Master Guiwu came out personally to invite Yen Beichen and even made a promise. It was clear how sincere he was. The most important reason why young Master Gui Wu wanted to rope in Yin Beichen was because of Yin Beichen's potential. Fiend Emperor hatred was in existence second only to the human emperor. As for Yin Beichen, he was almost the second Fiend Emperor hatred and might even be stronger. I can join the sorcerer tribe. Yin Beichen paused for a moment and said, "Go and kill those feathered beasts first." The green glint in young Master Gui Wu's eyes flickered. Many cultivators were speechless when they heard that. In the world, Shura was probably the only one who would dare to say something as such. "Gui Wu," 8th Prince said coldly. "I allowed you to talk to him for so long because I gave you face. You can't protect him if he dares to insult the Golden Crow race like that. I only wanted to give him a chance because I cherish talents." Young Master Gui Wu smiled and said faintly, "Since he doesn't know how to cherish it, do whatever you want. If I can't use such a peerless saber, I might as well destroy it." 8th Prince turned around and sized up Shura from head to toe. He grinned and said sinisterly, "Shura, I'm thinking about how I should torture you after suppressing you. Should I? You talk too much." Suddenly, Yin Beichen interrupted 8th Prince and slashed towards the 8th Prince with a backhand slash. A black beam tore through the air and burst forth with a suffocating aura of death. Streams of hatred fiend chi circled and enveloped 8th Prince instantly. Nobody could describe how terrifying that slash was. It was as though the sky had turned dark instantly. 8th Prince's pupils constricted violently, and his expression changed starkly. There was a hint of fear in the depths of his eyes. It had been a long time since he felt the aura of death so close to him. Before that slash descended, he already had the illusion that he was half a step into the gates of hell. Under the gazes of the living beings of the myriad races, 8th Prince suddenly screamed and vanished from the spot. In his place was a gigantic three-legged golden crow. Screech! The three-legged golden crow was burning with incomparably blazing flames. It extended its strongest third claw and grabbed towards the hatred fiend saber. That third leg was the most powerful attack of the Golden Crow race. Back then, it was the third leg of the Golden Crow third prince that forced Su Zimo to use the divine phoenix claw. Clang! The hatred fiend saber stood on the third leg, and the sound of metal clashing could be heard. Immediately after, a blood mist spewed out in midair. A gigantic and menacing Golden Crow leg was thrown high into the air. At the same time, 8th Prince's tragic cry was heard. It was mournful and terrifying. The living beings of the myriad races were shocked as they watched this scene in disbelief. 8th Prince's Golden Crow leg was severed by the hatred fiend saber. The third leg of the Golden Crow race was similar to the Heavenly Eye of the Heavenly Eye race. Once it was crippled, it was extremely difficult to recover. Shura's slash had severed at least half of 8th Prince's cultivation. Shura! Many cultivators were excited. Just now, when the 8th Prince suppressed Mingzhen, he did not even transform into his true form. But now that Shura had arrived, even if 8th Prince reverted to his true form, he was severely injured by Shura's slash. "Shura, you're finished." 8th Prince paused and said coldly, "You severed my leg. I'm going to skin you alive and grind your bones into ashes before imprisoning your spirit and torturing you for 1,000 years." Yin Beichen's expression was unchanged as though he did not hear anything. After slashing, he did not pause at all and descended once more like a shadow. When he saw that, 8th Prince was scared out of his wits and guts. Not good. The 8th Crown Prince was astonished. This person wants to kill me. He could not be blamed for being careless. However, he truly had not expected Shura to be so bold as to not let him off after severing one of his legs, and wanted to kill him. Even the other primordial races did not expect this, let alone him. 8th Prince had the entire Golden Crow race, and the primordial 6 races backing him. Severely injuring 8th Prince was already a huge disaster. Yet this person wanted to kill him. "Shura, how dare you?" 7th Prince was enraged and reverted to his true form right away. Flapping his wings, he descended from the skies and lunged towards Yin Beichen. Among the 4 princes, 7th Prince was the strongest in combat. 9th and 10th princes followed closely behind as well. Shura's actions incurred the wrath of the Golden Crow race, and the three princes attacked at the same time. End of chapter. Chapter 1559. Humph. Yen Beichen's expression was unchanged as his blood chi surged, and he released the full aura of a half-martial ancestor. He waved the Hatred Fiend saber and slashed forward, hollering, "Endless hatred! Limitless hell!" Streams of rich fiend chi burst forth from that slash. A terrifying saber intent descended and enveloped the four princes of the Golden Crow race. The hatred was torrential and endless. The killing intent was torrential like purgatory. Strictly speaking, that slash had already surpassed Fiend Emperor hatred. Yen Beichen had fused two cultivation techniques of the Fiend sex, the Shura Sutra and Hatred Sutra. He was the only one who could fuse those two cultivation techniques perfectly. Hatred and murderous intent were completely unleashed from the slash. "Everyone watch out!" Seventh Prince had a grim expression as he hollered. Cling! Clang! The sound of metal clashing could be heard in midair. Yen Beichen's slash blocked all the three princes who were charging forward and defended against their attacks. The sun essence fire released by the three princes was also devoured by the Hatred Fiend Chi and Shura's Fiend Chi. None of the flames were spilled. Yen Beichen strode forward with a cold expression. The Hatred Fiend saber tore through the air and transformed into a black beam that slashed towards Eighth Prince. Eighth Prince's face was pale as he released an escape technique and turned into a streak of golden light that fled into the distance. Exclamation point. Blood flashed. Right in front of everyone, a gigantic three-legged golden crow was split into two from the middle by a black beam. Blood splattered everywhere, and organs spilled all over the ground with a nauseating stench. No matter how fast Eighth Prince's escape technique was, it could not be faster than Shura's saber. That slash sliced Eighth Prince into two. Eighth Prince's essence spirit could not escape, and was destroyed by that slash, dying instantly. Psst! A series of gasps could be heard from the crowd. Many cultivators were dumbfounded with shocked expressions. Shura was way too strong. Not only did he seriously injure the Eighth Crown Prince, but he also killed the Eighth Crown Prince while being surrounded by the other three Crown Princes. For some reason, many cultivators felt their blood boil when they saw this scene. Their minds were in turmoil as they clenched their fists tightly. Prior to this, the primordial six races had killed too many cultivators when they arrived. However, from the beginning to the end, not a single cultivator dared to step forward, nor did anyone seek justice for the dead cultivators. And now Shura was here. Shura was not upholding justice, nor was he seeking justice for others. Shura only wanted to kill people. But this was enough. Who said that the human race had no geniuses? Boom! The eighth son of heaven had fallen. On the battlefield, the might of the burning flames was greatly reduced. A figure tore through the flames and descended before everyone once more. It was Ming Zhen. Ming Zhen is not dead. A burst of exclamations came from the crowd, and many cultivators revealed looks of joy. Initially, many cultivators thought that Ming Zhen would have been reduced to ashes after being refined by the Eighth Prince for such a long time. To think that Ming Zhen was still alive. Back then, Tung Lingzi kept Ming Zhen, who was at the Dharma characteristic realm, in his destiny blood gourd, and refined him for an entire 10 years. However, he could not refine Ming Zhen. Although the Eighth Prince's sun essence fire was strong, Ming Zhen could not do anything to his Xidagarba golden body with the help of the green lamp. The Seventh Prince stood in midair and glared at the corpse of the Eighth Crown Prince with a cold expression, as two balls of golden flames danced in his eyes. Screech! The Ninth Prince reared his head and cried with a sorrowful expression. Screech! Hundreds of golden crows reverted to their true forms one after another, and circled the corpse of the Eighth Crown Prince in midair, crying out continuously, "Shura, I'll have you pay with your life." The Seventh Prince let out a long howl. His body transformed into a burning spear as he charged towards Yen Beichen. The spear tore through the air, and the dermic powers in the void burned. At the same time, the Ninth and 10th Princes attacked as well. The three princes released a series of dermic arts and joined forces to attack Yen Beichen. Yen Beichen's expression was unchanged as he wielded the Hatred Fiend Saber, and fused the saber techniques of the Hatred Sutra and Shura Sutra perfectly. Every single slash contained 2 different saber intents. Even the 3 princes did not dare to take it head-on, and had to avoid it. Even Ming Zhen could not interfere in a battle of this level, let alone others. Humph, Ji Qingtian sneered. The Golden Crow race is so shameless. Earlier on, they said that it would be a fair fight. Now that they can't win, they're joining forces. It's fine, Lung Ro said slowly. Shura is way too strong. Even the 3 princes of the Golden Crow race are suppressed by him. Screech. The 7th prince cried once more. The situation on the battlefield changed instantly. Hundreds of 3-legged golden crows circling in the firmaments seemed to have received an order, as they attacked one after another, spewing out streams of essence sunfire that burned towards Yen Beichen. The crowd was in an uproar. This was no longer a 3-man encirclement. They were gathering the strength of an entire race to destroy Shura. Ming Zhen took a deep breath of air and joined the battlefield once more, stopping a golden crow and engaging in a huge battle. A girl in pink from the pure maiden sect of the fiend sex walked out gracefully. She removed her veil and smiled at a golden crow race being. The golden crow race being's mind buzzed, and his eyes widened instantly. He was mesmerized by the girl in pink's smile. The girl in pink was none other than the pure maiden of the fiend sex, Demoness Ji. Demoness Ji's eyes shone brightly as she said gently, "Go and kill him." She pointed to another 3-legged golden crow beside the golden crow race being and gave the order. When the golden crow race being that was bewitched by her heard that order, his eyes revealed a conflicted look as he frowned in pain. Demoness Ji furrowed her brows slightly. Although her bewitchment technique could bewitch the 3-legged golden crow, she had triggered the bottom line of the 3-legged golden crow by causing him to kill his own race. Kill! 2 3-legged golden crows noticed what was happening and charged towards Demoness Ji. Demoness Ji's bewitchment technique would definitely be extremely terrifying in a one-on-one fight. Just earlier, even if she could not order the 3-legged golden crow to kill his own race, Demoness Ji could kill him at any moment. However, the power that Demoness Ji could release was limited under the cover of hundreds of 3-legged golden crows. With her nimble steps, she could only hold back a few 3-legged golden crows at most. However, it was negligible against hundreds of 3-legged golden crows. Boom! An extremely thick golden staff descended from the sky and instantly smashed onto the back of a 3-legged golden crow, smashing the 3-legged golden crow into pieces. The essence spirit of the 3-legged golden crow tried to escape, but was restrained by a black cover filled with holes that descended from the skies. Golden lights burst forth one after another and raging flames burned within the black metal cover, burning the essence spirit of the golden crow race being into ashes instantly. At this point of the battle, another 3-legged golden crow was dead. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.